Non-responsive all weekend.
Like 30, 40 phone calls there.
Good evening. Today is Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2025. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting to order.
Linda Guapo.
Troy Lemire.
Paul Marino. Paul Harrington.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
William Hester.
Candy Perez.
William Pozo.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, agenda review. Does anyone have anything? Seeing nothing, moving on to item 4, the approval of the minutes of our special meeting on August 18th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Moving on to item 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes and may speak once. Seeing no citizens' comments, item number 6, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Board. First and foremost, I want to start off by saying if you have not heard, all of the swim advisories that did go up on Friday afternoon have been lifted. The test came back from a water sampling on Friday earlier this morning, and the levels were much, much lower. I can't tell you what the levels are because we still haven't received the official report from either the Tuesday sampling or the Friday sampling, but as soon as I have it, I will share with the board. But if anyone's watching or anyone here, the advisories that went up early Friday afternoon have all been lifted as of this morning. Moving on, I did get a chance to go to the EDC board meeting tonight, and I got to see their promotional video of Winstead, and I think Selectman Hester was in that meeting as well. They do plan, with your permission, I know you gave it to me last meeting, but they do plan on coming to our September 15th meeting to showcase that video. Simply wow.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that. They are looking for another meeting also on October 8th, where they want to showcase the video over at Little Red Barn as well. So two revealings of the video, one next week for this board, obviously, which will be a public meeting as well. And then again on October 8th, but I was absolutely blown away by the video quality, the speakers, everything. I'm gonna wait for 2 weeks and let you all just see for it yourself. Moving on, a quick update on the Eversource project. They continue to make solid progress. Helped obviously with the great stretch of weather we've had pretty much all summer long. As of today, they have about 700 feet left to complete before reconnecting the 39 individual services. They expect that they will start connecting the services by the end of this week. So pretty exciting that, you know, they got about a month and a half left, and they'll be out of here, and service connections to the new line will actually begin at the end of this week. On some good news also with Eversource, Friends of Main Street will be receiving a $2,500 grant. The town applied for several weeks ago. If you remember, we had 2 trees that were taken down by the Connecticut DOT. We reached out to Eversource. They do allow up to $10,000. We did apply for $10,000. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because we did get some money, Eversource is coming over with a $2,500 grant to our friends over at Friends of Main Street, which will help us get brand new trees and get them planted. I really want to get that grant awarded and spent, because if you're a tree guy, it's good to always plant trees in the fall so they have time to root themselves. So I got a small window to get these trees planted, this fall. So if I could, I'd love to see if I can get them done before Fall Foliage Fest, but that's a goal of mine, and we'll see if we can get it done. Moving on, I know I sent the board an email, but this is obviously for public as well. The Bridge Street intersection redesign public informational session will be held on September 11th in this room at 5 p.m. The goal of this is to walk the residents through the background of the project, explain why we're undertaking the changes, and share what we hope to accomplish. We'll be there to listen, gather input from the community and feedback, which will help shape the final design and ensure we're meeting the local needs as best as we can. So again, I've put it up on our social media channels, also on our website. But for anyone watching or watching later on, September 11th at 5 p.m. in this room, we're going to talk about the the Bridge Street redesign project, and we look for as much public input as we possibly can. Safe Streets for All Committee, the town continues to seek volunteers for the Safe Street for All Committee. This roundtable will bring together residents from diverse backgrounds along with town staff from several departments to work collaboratively with a consulting firm on drafting Winchester's Vision Zero action plan. If you're interested in making our Safe Streets for All, please contact my office and we'll get you signed up for it. A little other things going on, RFPs and RFQs. We do have 3 that are currently out on the town's website. First one being the municipal IT services. It's closing on September 15th. That contract actually expires October 1st. Auction for town-owned vehicles and equipment closing on September 18th. We have some items that we no longer need, and if you're interested in it, go take a look at the town's website. And last but not least, for a committee that has worked tirelessly, we have the RFQ for the Sue Grossman Greenway segments 3 and 4 engineering, which is closing October 2nd. I'll take this time once again to just absolutely thank the members that are involved with the Sue Grossman Committee and the tireless work that they put in each and every week. We seem to meet every other week, and every 2 weeks the meetings are jam-packed, and there's a lot of great discussion. More on that later on, but again, publicly, I want to thank the committee for all that they've done, and it's really, as Selectman Perez says, it's the shovel-ready committee, and it's moving along. So, Japanese knotweed invasive species grant. The town submitted a $42,000 funding application to Deep's Trees for Communities grant program. If awarded, this grant will allow us to contract a licensed professional firm for 2 years of treatment of the Japanese knotweed, an invasive species that threatens local ecosystems and tree cover in Winchester. Importantly, this grant requires no match from the town. So we're very hopeful that we get this $42,000 grant and we can treat this Japanese knotweed. Resident Assistance Fund grant application. We are preparing the application for, once again, to receive funds from the Resident Assistance Fund. This fund allows us to cover items that aren't covered by the state or federal programs. You don't need to watch the news all the time, but note some of the state and federal programs have been having some slashing in funding. We do have some residents that are out there that need assistance, and this allows us to at least help a little bit. It's not the end-all, be-all answer, but it does give us an opportunity to help some of our neighbors. Moving on, the marshal's sign went up on the building, and the office phone blew up. Are they opening this week? They are not, but they do plan on opening sometime middle of October to the end of October, if all things go, but they have made a commitment that they will be open long before anyone starts their holiday shopping. So look for the grand opening. We'll obviously advertise it somewhere between the middle to the end of October. Marshalls will be opening. And last but not least, as a father with 2 young kids, I want to remind everybody, school's back in session. Please drive a little bit slower, especially the first few weeks. Have a little extra patience. People are still learning routines. There's new kids getting on buses, off buses. So as a dad, I urge you to just take a little bit more time as everybody settles into the new routines of everybody back to school. Look for kids walking to and from school. With that, I'll open it up to the board for any questions they may have.
More questions?
I just have a question. Is there a targeted area for this knotweed treatment grant that you're trying to get? Is there a specific area we're trying to eradicate it?
I could actually answer that. I was just actually at the Conservation Commission meeting, and I think there's like 163 locations. There's quite a bit.
There's quite a bit. The town garage is a huge spot for it. So they're gonna try to get it
Oh,
all.
I know. I'm familiar with how nasty it is.
It's everywhere in town, so we went out for, these 263
Yeah,
locations.
163.
163 locations, and bringing in some experts to say, hey, you're gonna need, roughly $42,000 in funding to treat this for 2 years, so, it's all over. I don't think we left a stone unturned of where Japanese knotweed is.
I know that they talked about it, that this is only for like the size of the roads. This is not for private property.
Not for private property, yes, yeah.
That-
Make that
that's a
perfectly
lot.
clear, yes.
That's a lot of spots.
Goes along the river in some
Yes.
spots.
Yes.
And what that does, well, you know, it will crowd out all the other plants that are there, which will eventually affect all the aquatic life that's down there.
So they gotta wait till the flower stage is gone and then spray it and then we can mow it and hopefully it kills it.
Hopefully, yeah.
It's tough to kill.
I went to the class, my town's doing the same thing. Luckily for me, Norfolk has very little spots. It's gonna be a local thing we're gonna take care of. But the bigger problem we have is the hogweed. It's not the knotweed. The other one is the worst one that we have. That's everywhere, and I don't know how they're gonna handle that one.
First time I've heard hogweed, so I'm not really gonna comment much on it, but let me look into it and.
Yeah,
see
that was
what-
all in the class. We
Okay.
all, most.
And we have it here in this town?
Oh,
Hogweed?
you got it
We
everywhere.
everywhere?
It's all over
Okay.
all the piles of dirt, mine too.
Okay.
It's everywhere. So, I don't know what they're gonna do there, but.
Other questions? I see they're doing a lot of work at the Domino's location. Any word when that's opening?
They hope to open sometime before the end of the year, and you're 100% right. I drive by there obviously twice a day and am blown away by the amount of work that they're doing. In fact, our.
The hood's finally inside.
And the hood's finally inside.
That was out front for how long?
About 2 weeks.
Amazing.
I joked
Glad to
with,
see it stayed outside
with
for 2
Mr.
weeks.
Green, I go, Mr. Green, no, I haven't seen it. I go, how could you miss this big steel thing? But they hope to open that by the end of the year. And I will say that there is heavy interest in a vacant building that's been on Main Street for quite some time. May have housed a gas station at one time. We're bringing in the new owner in the not-so-distant future to talk about his plans of opening something there. I'll leave it at that,
Very good.
but some good excitement, and I'm excited because
Paul, two things on the road. Are they gonna pave right after they're done?
Eversource.
Eversource you're talking? Well, as you know.
Gutter to gutter, as far as I'm understanding?
Not gutter to gutter, unfortunately, because it's a state road. We're still fighting that out with Eversource in the state of Connecticut, because that road was perfect. I can't say that I've gotten a firm commitment that we're going to gutter, but you know, everything's got to compact, and then they're gonna come back, mill the road, and then pave it
Well,
again. We'll see that next year.
Close in November.
Yeah, we won't see that this year.
So that's not good.
Yeah, we're not gonna see that this year. They're gonna let everything compact down, come back and mill the road, and then pave it, just like any
Are they
other
responsible
project.
for the potholes in it during the winter?
I had Tim from Eversource in my office today, pointed just the stretch right in front of Town Hall, and I said, as soon as a state DOT plow hits that section, that's it, Ball, we'll address it. I said, I'll call you every day, Tim, because,
Yeah.
I'm gonna see the pothole every day, and my phone's gonna ring every single day. So they're gonna take full responsibility, but it's not from a lack of communication from at least the town manager's office that, that road was beautiful. It really was. You know, yeah, I know we gotta work some things out, slow traffic down, all of that, but it was
It's not gonna be.
paved great.
They're not gonna, no matter what they do, it's not gonna bring it back the way it was, so.
Gonna continue to advocate, you know, the state statutes and laws do not make the contractors to go gutter to gutter,
Right.
but I'm gonna
In this
petition
case, they
hard.
should, or they should let them just mill it, and they don't do the 9 inches, just 2 inches.
Yeah, well, you know, then you got the DOT standard, and it's more than 9 inches on a main road, you're gonna
No,
go.
it's 9 inches.
Is it 9? I thought it was 12, but,
No.
yeah.
But it's still, I mean, you don't have to do a full re-depth. They can do that, but whatever. And also, as I told you during the week, I'm very upset at their lackadaisy traffic patterns. I mean, there's guys standing around all over the place, and there's cones flying through the air from tractor trailer trucks, and then they go in the middle of the lane where you're supposed to drive, and you gotta run it over, and the signs are laying down in the road, and nobody's doing anything.
I have
And
to
they
ask,
made the pattern so tight that that's gonna happen, so they needed to have somebody watching that.
the day you called me, did you notice that it improved, because I jumped on that
It did,
immediately?
but the next day, the same thing happened.
Next day, okay, because I jumped on it immediately. Obviously, we're dealing with an OSHA issue. We've gone through our, obviously, it's not us that is constructing it, but I jumped on it immediately. I went then the following day, or that afternoon, saw that signs were up, cones were up, but I guess I gotta continue to stay on them, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a safety hazard for everybody. It's hard enough to get through the cones, and then when they're laying in front of you too.
Yeah.
Moving on to item 7, correspondence. Does anyone have anything? Item number 8, boards and commissions.
I have a question. Do you have anybody?
I do not have anybody right now. We still have one pending, but I did not get a chance to touch base with her this week. So I
Yeah, because there was somebody, for the planning and zoning, there was someone in the list.
Yeah, I just haven't had a chance to follow up with it this week. But no new additions other than that.
No, I had mentioned a couple meetings ago that it would be helpful that when these applications come forward, even though they're almost a year old, that we are presented with them. I know it's a little more work for whoever generates them, the town clerk, but it really would be helpful if we could see them in our packets. Yeah, last meeting, we had Janet Perry for planning and
Yeah, I
zoning.
just didn't
and
have a
she
chance to
should
reach
have
out to
been
her.
vetted so that she could fill the vacancy for this commission. And these are volunteers?
I get that.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item 9, unfinished business. We have nothing listed.
Mr. Mayor?
Item 10, new business. A, Winston Health Center tax abatement. Town Manager Harrington and NCHIC, Northwest Housing and Innovation Center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And joining me tonight, I'm going to introduce Chris, who will then introduce her team. It's obviously on our agenda as the Northwest Connecticut Housing and Innovation Center, but you all may be familiar with this project as the Winston Health Center. They're coming here tonight with a presentation, one, to talk about their project, to get us all re-familiar with what they're looking to accomplish over there, but also to make this project work with all the state and federal funding. They're here for an ask tonight for a tax abatement. So Chris, are you ready? I don't see.
Kevin's not here, but I can always start talking.
You want to start? And then Jeff, do you want to, we're going to get the PowerPoints going.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Do we have an ETA on Kevin?
He told me 7:15, about 45 minutes ago. He was stuck in traffic.
If the board so wishes, and it's the, you know, do you want to take B before we take A? Give Kevin a little bit more time to get here?
Sure, that's permissible.
Yeah, that's
Anyone have a problem with
You want to do that? I mean,
Working on the 8, go for it, big boy.
we're gonna what?
Never mind, keep going.
I missed the joke if there was one there, but.
that? All right, so we are
didn't miss
going
much.
to skip item A for now, and we'll come back to that. Going to move on to item B, speed camera bid reviews.
Okay, so again, I do apologize, and the sheet that I handed out just before the meeting began looks like this. We went out to bid an RFP and put it obviously as many places as we possibly could to get proposals of all of the companies that offer these speed cameras that are currently allowed in the state of Connecticut. Happy to report in going through this RFP process that we are the only town in Connecticut that actually went to RFP. And we actually got a few proposals from different companies that offer it. We did get 4 proposals sent back to us. Each one is going to be listed on the sheet. I'm going to walk through the basis of, you know, what the proposals are coming in like, potential liability with each one of these particular companies. I want to state very publicly and firmly that this is a long process. The direction that the board may send me in does not guarantee speed cameras are going to show up tomorrow. This could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. The public will be brought in during the process. All the town manager is looking for is to move to the next step, to at least start to look at, do we want to do speed cameras in different areas throughout town? In order to do that, we would, you know, work with one of the particular vendors and then come up with all of it, and we'd bring the public in, obviously the board in, and there'd be a lot of discussion. But in order to do that, we need to settle in on one and then go from there. So 4 companies, and you could see that all of them install the cameras for free. Mr. Marino, not any of the proposals were submitted. We reached out to them and asked them, what if we buy this system? It was a question you brought up at the last meeting. They said, we don't do that. I said, okay, thank you very much. So, and I think you'll see why as we move through. 3 of the companies have monthly maintenance fees. You can see it ranges anywhere from $1,250 all the way up to $3,500. There are additional add-ons that you can add to a few of them, and what those add-ons are is they will be your collection agency. You can see that the fees paid per town, you can see ranges anywhere on the low side of $30 all the way up to 65% of the fee that gets charged out there. Right now, the state of Connecticut allows you to charge $50 for the first offense. You can add a $15 processing fee to that. And then if they are caught within 60 days, that second offense can go up to $75 plus a $15 processing fee. Moving through, we wanted to pull an example to just give you a baseline. We said, okay, we're gonna issue 2,000 tickets a month at, a $65 ticket. And there's a lot of what ifs, and I'm gonna share with you some information I got from Middletown after talking with them this afternoon. But we said roughly, and this example is saying that we're gonna write 2,000 tickets per month, or this equipment is gonna write 2,000 tickets per month. You can look down at the monthly revenue that each particular vendor would supply to the town. You can then look at the revenue that the vendor would receive per month. Now, I'm going to look at the first one for an example, and this isn't to say anything negative or positive about the first vendor, but they're first on the list. You can see under the example of 2,000 tickets per month, the town's monthly revenue would be $95,000. I asterisk that is if we collect all of the citations that have been issued. The vendor would receive $35,000 a month. Actually, you multiply that out by 12 months. The town would receive yearly revenue of just over $1.1 million. The yearly revenue to the vendor would be $420,000. So in total, citations would obviously equal just about $1.5 million. The monthly liability to the town is $35,000, and the yearly liability to the town is $420,000. So this first one, for example, you'll see that the town will be invoiced only for paid citations, not citations issued, and will continue to receive share of revenue regardless if citations are collected. So that's saying that we're going to spend $1,250 a month. We get paid and they get paid only when the citation is paid, right? Moving down to the second one, you can see that the yearly revenue to the vendor is $273,000. This one, under the agreement, is the town is invoiced based on a fixed fee price per camera system, meaning the vendor listed as number 2, they get paid based on citations that are issued. And the best example I can give to that is when I talked to the Middletown this afternoon, is Middletown actually ended up going with Docra Technologies. And we originally looked at Docra when I first started to look at speed cameras and such. And I was pretty impressed with their system, and then started to learn a little bit more about these systems. So Docra Technology charges $13.50 per citation issued, if it's a citation. $7 if it's a warning. They bill any town that goes with this particular system. They bill the town $13.50 or $7, no matter if that citation is collected or not. So a great example, Middletown made a lot of press recently. I'm gonna find my cheat sheet on Middletown.
We don't have Middletown as one of the vendors that responded then.
We do
right?
not, no. So DACRA was, they didn't obviously respond to our RFP process, but DACRA was a company that I met with. So here's a great example of Middletown. So Middletown ended up issuing $10,000 in speeding tickets since the middle of July. Those fines totaled $600,000. But if you go with a system where they invoice you per citation, you take $10,000 or 10,000 tickets and you times that by, let's say everybody got a citation. Everybody gets a citation, $13.50. This particular company would invoice the town for $130,000. Y'all are great. So the city of Middletown issued $600,000 in fines. To date, they've only collected $30,000. But they still owe the agency $130,000. So I think it's very, very important as we work through this sheet, we look at what the exposure possibly to the town may be in terms of what types of liability are out there. And you can see on the sheet, and this came up today after we met with the team and we brought everybody in, we added that red column. And you could see potentially, based on the model of 2,000 citations issued, what the liability would be for each one of the vendors that put in an RFP. Except you get down to SiteStream. SiteStream has no camera installation, no monthly maintenance fee. The town gets $30 a ticket, they take $35. Yearly income, based on 2,000 tickets, the town would receive $720,000. The vendor would receive $840,000. But they only get paid if we get paid. Meaning, on the 1st and the 15th of the month, all this money goes into a pot. On the 1st and 15th of the month, SiteStream would go in and swipe the account and take their portion and then pay out the proceeds of our portion. In that it stays in this quote-unquote escrowed account that only they get paid. There's no invoicing that ever comes to the town. SiteStream, along with their proposal, they provide a collection agency because, again, they have a vested interest to get the citation paid. Because if they don't get it paid, they don't get paid, we don't get paid. There's no invoicing. All that we get out of SiteStream is simply a revenue source at the end of the year. A question came in from the mayor today, which I think I'll say to the board. What if somebody protests their ticket and they want to go to court? SiteStream sends all the speed calibration reports to the courthouse to say, our machines are operating properly, here's the picture of their license plate and everything. So they go and they actually fight the ticket if anybody were to go and actually claim that it wasn't them. I will note, and I think it's important early on in the process, that you gave your friend your car for the day and they sped through this speed zone. The owner of the car, the registered owner of the car, receives the ticket. So if you're a nice person and you loan out your car, you may want to keep that in mind. Also, that each one of these agencies that apply, they will work through all of the documentation that we need to submit to the DOT to get approval. They will then come in and by state law, you have to clearly identify that you're entering a speed camera check zone and that you're exiting a speed camera check zone. So I know I shared a few meetings ago, the number of speeders that we caught. It was massive. 72% of the people that were driving through these zones. Some of the audience is looking at me like, whoa, wow. We didn't identify the zones to anybody. Nobody knew there was a speed camera there at the present time. Do I feel, I hope not, but do I feel that the number would still be at 72%? Probably not, because we literally have to identify that you're entering the speed zone and that you're exiting the speed zone. And that's designed by state statute. And that they don't want you to, gotcha anything like that. But that's why we use 2,000 tickets roughly a month. We felt very conservative with that number. In the beginning, we do think it's probably going to be much higher than that. And then learned behavior will happen, and obviously it'll be less and less and less. Wherever we put the camera needs to remain for 18 months. then we would have to petition the DOT to move that camera to a different location, and why we want to move that. But again, any of the agencies, not just, you know, ones at the bottom, but any of the agencies work through all of that. They do help, you know, produce all of the material that needs to go out on the street, identifying that, you know, travelers are entering the speed zone. So the good news is we can get into this and get the cameras installed for free on any company. Then it's just a matter of, do we want to take the liability on as the town, or do we not? Do we want to pay monthly fees? Do we not? Or say, you know what? Why don't we do this at no cost to the town, potential revenue source, and if we get it, great. If we don't, we're not out anything, because we didn't put, quote unquote, any skin in the game. The only skin in the game that we're technically putting in is our roads, which, okay, that's some big skin in the game, but we don't have any financial commitment to at least try and slow down traffic. You know, I talked about schools opening back up again. We can put them in school areas. I can't tell you how many times people have come in and said, we need to slow traffic down on our main street. This could be an opportunity for us to start to slow down traffic. I received an email over the weekend. Somebody was up at the tennis courts for 2 hours, just that alone. They were shocked at how many speeders in 2 hours were, you know, cruising down Raleigh Street. So there were a lot of areas in town. I open it to the board for any questions.
Paul, the only thing that's gonna change the liability on the town is when the motor vehicle, will not let you renew your registration, and everything's new right now, so Washington's getting hit, because that probably once people realize that they're not gonna be able to register their car, you're gonna have to pay the ticket. So, eventually.
But right now in Connecticut, that's not a thing,
It is a
right?
thing.
It is a thing.
It is a thing.
They did change
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, it's not, it hasn't been operational long enough for people to know that part.
Yeah.
So Washington will be probably getting their money back eventually.
So one of the things that we
What's that?
noticed over the last 2 years, when the state law switched the registration for vehicles from 2 years to 3 years, that you saw tax bills becoming a little bit more delinquent. I got 3 years before I
Yeah.
have to worry about that.
Well, they don't have to pay your ticket for 3 years.
So, and again, now you don't have to pay. Did they move out of town? Did they move out of state? You know, things of that. So I caution when you say, okay, great, I saw it directly when the state moved from a 2-year registration to a 3-year registration, that people kicked that can a little bit further because, I have my registration. I don't have to worry about that now for 3 years. And then they all come in and, you know, they got to register their car. So then they pay. It's crazy because it's 18%, but because of the state now allowing registration to kick out for 3 years, you know.
So Paul, for example, number 1 says the town's only invoiced for paid citations, not citations used, right?
Issued, yep.
I'm gonna just be clear. Of these vendors, how many of these have the similar situation that Middletown has, where we could be faced with a bill each month for this?
So if you look at 2A, 2A would bill you every month. Well, on the 1st and 15th, they would bill you every month. So under the FFM, the town is invoiced based on fixed fee price per camera system and citation issued. So 2A is going to be a fee based of, you know, this particular
So
agency.
similar to Middletown, we could be faced with a greater expense than we are revenue.
Correct, and that's that red box, right? And that's taking into, you know, 2,000 tickets a month.
With everybody but SiteStream.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
So all the other vendors, with the exception of SiteStream, we could be in a negative situation.
We could potentially be in a negative situation, yes.
I have a question, back to the, people having to, pay the ticket before they re-register their car. Who is keeping that data, and how is it available to our tax collector?
So in order to, and I'm gonna hack the name of the system. So both our tax collector has access to release a motor vehicle. If you come in and you want to, you know, your car needs to be registered, our tax collector can go into the system, and the name is escaping me right now, and actually say that it's been marked paid. It's going to work very similar to that, in that we can go in and mark that particular ticket as paid, which would then allow the individual to register their motor vehicle. It's a very simple thing where if you want to get a release on your vehicle that day, we ask that you bring in, you know, certified check or cash.
The reason I'm asking is because you just talked about 3 years. It's possible for somebody to get a ticket today and not renew their registration until 3 years from now and have to pay that ticket. So where for 3 years is that data stored that it pops up and the town has to prove that they gave that ticket? So
Motor vehicles would reject the registration.
I know motor vehicle will reject it, and the person's gonna come in and swear upside down that they didn't get a ticket and it's wrong. And so how is the town going to store that 3-year-old data so that it's there to say, nope, look over here? Are we gonna have a big book of it, where at the end of every 6 months, we get a new, whatever company gives us a big book with all the citations in it? Are we just gonna get an electronic file of some sort?
I would hope it's an electronic
Web-based,
file.
or
Please.
How is it? So, I mean, that's gonna have to be,
It's gonna have to be vetted.
it's gonna have to be stored for the 3 years.
Yeah, if we go down the route, you know, of, you know, I guess, yeah, even with, you know, the company that has little, well, I'll just say no liability, we're still gonna obviously wanna collect that information. Now, SiteStream, looking at, you know, their back-end office stuff, and, you know, the owner and CEO of the company is also the inventor of the company. I did not go down that particular rabbit hole for question. I think it's a great question, and I don't have the answer, because how are we keeping that information? 3 years is a lot of time.
So, who reports delinquent taxes to motor vehicles? The tax office?
The tax office, yes.
I guess the question, in a nutshell, is does SiteStream, when these tickets aren't paid, does SiteStream report these to motor vehicles? Or do we report these?
So,
Right?
I don't wanna, I'm gonna guess, I would think because SiteStream wants to be, they're gonna report it to the DMV, they're gonna have that direct link to access, but I wanna get the answer to that. Again, you know, where we are in this process is very early on. We have a ton of work to do if we decide that we wanna go. Really, you know, tonight is, you know, went to RP, we obviously got, you know, 4 applications back. What I was hoping is the board picks 1 or 2 and we start going down the path of beginning this process. Because again, we're 12 to potentially 18 months before we even see it. And there is a lot of work. There's a lot of questions to be answered. And a lot of them are not engaging, because right now there are so many different companies out there that are pitching these to communities. You see them popping up all over the place. I'm pretty proud of us that we were the only town so far that went out and request for proposals.
I mean, in my mind, Paul, I look at these numbers and anything that's in red, we've been through 2 budget seasons already. Anything that has a potential liability to it, I mean, I'm the least interested in.
I'll second
However, if it's getting reported to motor vehicles, worst case, the liability's gonna exist for a maximum of 3 years, and we're getting
If you look at
97% of our money,
From
correct?
what I understand, the logistics here are, Paul, SiteStream, if that was the vendor, they issue the citation. The town doesn't issue the citation. SiteStream issues the citation, they collect the money and pay us.
So every one of these companies that you see on the list, is they issue the citation.
Right.
When
So they have
some
to
of
be
the
tied into the
companies-
state systems if they're doing that.
I would assume you're correct.
Right.
That didn't come up, so I don't want to, you know, put the stamp on it. Every one of these agencies or companies will issue the ticket. It's just a matter of who's going to invoice when they issue the ticket, and who's not going to invoice us and just write us a check on the 1st and 15th of the month.
It is very tempting to look at those dark green, you know, $1.2 million numbers and go, wow, that would be great. But as Selectmen Lemire and Pozo said, I'm not interested in anything that's going to have us in a situation like Middletown.
Well, let me cast it a different way too. So you look at that, you know, first box, right? It's $420,000 yearly liability to the town. So times that by 3 years, you could potentially be on the hook until we get paid. If I have to, you know, we talked about this as a group today. You look at that first proposal, right? I'd have to create an expense item in the budget. I'd have to create a revenue source, but I would literally have to create. Now, I don't have my crystal ball. I would not want to put $420,000 in on the expense side, hoping that some people pay their ticket. But then I look at Middletown, who issued $600,000 in tickets, and they only collected $30,000 bucks.
So they're
I mean,
on the hook.
So it seems that three of us have already said we would, you know, looking at this, we would be in favor of number 3. How does everybody else feel?
I'm curious, what did your team say? What's the input from the chief? There are 3 of them where the town is responsible. Is that another position that they, so I need to know some information. I need to know what the chief of police feels
Yep.
about this.
So I talked to the chief of police actually just before this meeting started, well, a couple hours before the meeting started. So in each one of these examples here, there is somebody that's going to need to go in and click to either issue a citation, a warning, or take no action.
Within the police department?
Within the police department, yeah. It can be a designee of the chief or the local traffic authority. But the good news, I should probably point this out as well. So every single one of these companies, we do need to designate a person to either
Okay.
click the button,
So-
not click the button.
2,000 times a month, theoretically.
Minimum, yeah,
Yeah.
minimum. It doesn't take long. I walked through the example. I think it's important, and I do apologize, Selectwoman Grapple, because I'm going a little bit off, but this money per state statute is quote-unquote lockboxed in the police department. We cannot fund schools, but we can fund positions. It's all things that can control speed. So let's say 2 officers' positions get funded. Well, that would free up, I'll throw out a number, $200,000 in our budget because we could take the revenue from
Right.
this. So we can free up some money, supplement the police budget with the revenues from this. Obviously, you know, if this thing grows, do we assign, you know, we get 10,000 tickets a month, not 2,000. We may be looking at funding a designated person just to go through the tickets.
But at that point, it would be a self-funded position.
Oh, that's, yeah.
And then some.
And then some.
But then, you know, you think learned behavior, that it's gonna come down. So, you know, we'd wanna be very cautious in that, you know, we make it perfectly well known, this is being funded through this program, but if the program goes away.
The learned behavior is only gonna happen amongst locals.
Good.
It's the people's cutting through town, you know, that,
But do you have the projection on that? Do you, like, have you built some sort of a projection, or these companies built some sort of projection on the trend line? And where the trend line's gonna be on it? Because the other thing I think we need to look at is, we have these fees, or the split at the very beginning. You know, there's an investment by the company with the equipment, and then the equipment's working, and their maintenance over time is less. So the money that they're collecting or taking as their share from us, they've already paid off the cameras. And then their share is more about a profit margin than it is about, you know, personnel or equipment, taking care of it, you know, the maintenance and stuff. So is there in any of these, the ability to change the percentages as the speeders go down, and the percentages that we all get are, if we stayed the same, we would all go. But is there an opportunity within a contract in the future to change our percentage from, you know, instead of us at 30 and them at whatever it was, 35? Because there's still some money on the table somewhere, because that doesn't add up to 100. And so, you know, can we get a larger percentage each year, kind of like an
The
inflation.
ticket is 65, that's where the 30 and 35 comes in.
Yeah, okay, 30 and 30. But so, and then the split that happens.
So after 18 months, per agreements that were sent during it, it would be open for negotiations. So no guarantee, again, in 18 months, we can kick these things out.
By 18 months, could we get a new vendor?
We could get a new vendor in 18 months. Yes, we could get a new vendor in 18 months. I think the questions that this board came up were so helpful when we started this process of, I think it was this side, I don't remember the person, but it said, well, what's the data? Well, and my answer was, well, these things are so new, I don't get the data, and then you all allowed me to go out and actually get our data. But here's some data that's pretty interesting in Middletown after speaking with them. So the first week that they put these cameras in, they had 144 motorist violations in a week. That now has dropped to 21,000 a few months into the cameras in Middletown. You could see the learned behavior significantly dropped, okay? So 144 motorists, when they actually advertise entering a speed zone, now it's dropped down to 21,000. So there was some definite, now, heavy advertising, it was all over the news, you know, there was press releases all over the place with it. So as far as any additional learned behavior, these are so like new. And I did reach out to Washington. I didn't get a call back because I want to see what they had thought.
The one in Washington is heavily
marked.
Yeah. Oh, that's the way they
Again, I
have to
said, if
be.
you get a ticket that one, anybody gets a ticket that one, you deserve the ticket, 100%. You have 4 signs before you get to the thing.
You know, talking with a lot of the different towns in the COG alone, I know a lot of the towns are starting to look into this. I think Connecticut, because they have passed this law, this is gonna probably be a very short term, and by short, a few years. 20 years from now, everyone's just gonna, you can't speed in Connecticut, because every town's gonna have them, you know, every town. Just basing the interest off of talking with COG members now, you know, their CEOs, their mayors, their first selectmen, reading newspaper articles. I don't think there's a town out there out of 169 towns that isn't at least looking at this. I think, Troy, excuse me, Selectman Lemire, you had said your first selectman's looking at this. You know, there's no one that I'm talking with that isn't looking at it.
So, to Candy's point, to see the long-term data, is SiteStream's national, correct?
Not just national, but worldwide.
Okay. So I know for a fact there's states, Texas has been doing this for years. They've had these cameras. Can they get us national data to say that for the first year, their collection, and after 4 years, it's continually?
We can get all that, yeah, we can.
What does that tell us, though? Does that tell us, okay, we shouldn't do it because it's gonna drop off after
but
the first year? Or does it tell us,
No,
does
but
it
it
tell us
just gives
that, I mean, the intent here is to slow people down,
it's
right?
gonna.
And then the revenue is a nice plus to that, but whether or not it stays at the numbers here or they drop off, we're not investing to do this if we chose that particular vendor. So what's the
no cost
downside
out.
for us and what's the,
There's no
what are we
downside.
trying to learn from the data?
Because you're talking about one vendor, we're supposed to be selecting amongst a bunch of vendors here. So the data tells us, well, this vendor will cost us this in the end because the numbers are slid.
For me, I'm not willing to put us in any situation where we gotta write a check.
Yeah.
But you
There's
also
only
wanna
one
make
answer.
sure that whatever you're doing, whoever's doing the clicking, that person isn't gonna cost us more money and that we're just, you know,
That's where the long-term data, I think, comes in, Paul. If it drops to,
when you
you're
start
collecting,
funding people.
you're having 5% of the tickets versus the 100%
But if
you
it
had
dropped in
before.
half from what we've estimated here, it's still,
Gonna fund one position, yeah.
well, it's well over $300,000. It's gonna,
Yeah, yeah.
it's gonna fund one position and a lot more. So I guess we can get all the data and we can spend weeks and months getting all the data, or we could go, we're not making an investment here. It will slow people down, which is really the primary thing we're trying to do. And if we get, the other vendors are not interesting because I'm not willing to put us in a situation where we have to write a check.
I agree.
Nobody wants to be in a position at the budget season, like, wow, great news, we had to write a check for $400,000 for the speed camera service, and we didn't get the revenue from that. I'll take the lesser revenue and let them handle all the risk, and they handle the collections.
And they're willing to add cameras, Paul? If we want them, say we had success with this for 2 years, we want more cameras. They'll,
They'll put 10 cameras out. I'm not suggesting this. They'll put 10, 20 cameras in town tomorrow. Any
because
of
I
these
did- I did
companies,
tell you
any
when-
of these companies
I
will.
went through Washington in that camera I was telling you about. And the one thing I noticed about learned behavior right there is I saw people pulling out of driveways. They come up, everybody immediately would slow down, they saw the camera. Soon as they got an eighth of a mile past that camera, I'd watch the car in front of me like, right to 80 miles an hour.
I think it's
Because they
great,
knew they were past camera, so if you could add more, move them.
I think it's great that we got the RFP, Paul. I mean, I'm glad that we have all these different proposals to look at, to compare to. But there's, one stands out without liability for us. I don't know how you put us in a situation where we'd have liability.
I suggest you just move ahead with the site stream and bring us back more information.
Is that a motion?
Do we have to make a motion?
I was not looking for a motion. I was just looking for direction because again, we're dealing with a very sensitive item. I don't think we want to, make it a motion. We haven't agreed on any of this. I just needed to know that this board felt comfortable to at least, be honest, to start the process. All I was on was a fact-finding mission right now. We could get some more information, from, these particular companies, and you all may decide to pump the brakes, before it even gets into the public. You may say, whoa, that's not what I originally thought. I guess to hear what the board is saying, if I were to give a recommendation, I would say, may I have the permission to talk to two of these companies? You look at SiteStream, which I think, the board's warmed up with. And let me talk to this, 2A. I don't wanna hack their name. But it's always good when this is a public meeting. When you have two on the hook, it's always better than one, because then you're gonna get the best deal,
Right.
and that we're not gonna piggyback ourselves, but let me play two of them out. There's nothing in state statute that, doesn't allow me to vet, two vendors to get the best deal,
Plus you have some
for-
information that we asked to get.
for the
so-
town.
I think that's fine. Paul, you said, just to clarify, camera system maintenance, you said that's 1,700 monthly or
Yes,
annually
Monthly.
to maintain a camera?
Yes, on three of the.
Four cameras,
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
4 cameras would be 1,700 a month.
yeah.
You're gonna have somebody clean the lens every week.
Well, that's
Well, no, it's more than that. There's ensuring that the calibration is perfect. I don't pretend to, know what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everybody's P&L statements are, but, there is work to go in. One thing that, I did ask is, what if they get hit? Our light poles get taken down. So this is gonna be on a pole. What if it gets hit? Every single one of these will cover it. They have insurance on it. It's not going on our insurance, so it's their equipment. We're just benefiting from them putting their equipment, in our spaces, so.
I think another thing to consider is if we're serious about doing this, that as you pointed out earlier, most towns are gonna be looking at this. And if we're interested in doing it, if we spend months talking about it, by the time we get around to it, it could be 2 years before the DOT is gonna get backed up, because they're gonna have how many towns in the state, right?
169?
So we got 169 folks that are gonna be doing it. You got, DOT's gonna need to do it. I'd say if we're interested in slowing down the traffic and creating the revenue, let's drill into those two that you're talking about, Paul. But you would have to really come back with something earth-shatteringly different before I'd be interested in any of the ones where we have exposure.
So quick shout out to my friends over at the DOT. The state statute was written that once we apply to put these cameras up, the DOT has 60 days per state statute to respond to the town's request. But I think to your point, Selectman Marino, is that these particular agencies just have so many employees. There's a lot of work that needs to go into writing these reports to at least submit to the DOT. So I think where the bog down potentially could happen is that these companies get a lot of towns initiating and writing stuff. That could be the bog down. State statute says the DOT has 60 days, which is great.
Right, but the
I
companies
think
are gonna get jammed.
The companies are gonna get jammed.
Nothing goes fast with DOT in
60 days per statute,
Not gonna happen.
so.
One of the things I think we need to keep in mind, if we learned anything from COVID, it's gonna be supply chain. If we wait too long, the tariffs on chips for these cameras may increase prices. Supply chain backups when everybody starts ordering these cameras. I think it's, in a perfect world, we'd control our speed in town by our cops pulling cars over, but that's just not possible. They'd be overwhelmed at this point doing that. So I think if we're gonna move with this, we need to select the plan that does the least harm to the town, which is definitely the side stream in my opinion. But I think we should move as quickly as we can to get the stuff ordered while we're doing the paperwork, if that's even permissible.
Because if we started now, it's probably 9 to 12 months to get it done.
Right.
I hope not.
Well, I think one of the things that we ought to talk about then is where we're gonna place these cameras. Because I don't think that just Main Street is enough.
I think North Main Street definitely needs to have cameras.
Yeah, well, I think that,
I would do Main Street, I would do Rowley Street,
Yeah.
I would do Old Route 8, and I would also put one over by Pearson School.
So, 4 was in this particular comparison, the RFP, Paul, right? That's what you have here is 4 cameras?
We listed it as 4. Now,
Is there a limit on the number of cameras we can start with if we set up? But and the other question I have, and we can pick roads, right? Because all of us drive on certain roads and we see the speeding. What are the experts telling us who study traffic patterns and understand this, where the cameras should go?
what the experts, and by experts, I'm gonna asterisk that by the owners or managers of these companies, they'll tell you they'll install 20 cameras if you so desire. I will let you know that if you look at all of the towns in Connecticut, they have started small. They wanted to get their feet wet. You look at Middletown, Middletown started with 2, they quickly went to 4, they are looking to add 2 more. Okay, so what is the right answer? My opinion, I would be anywhere from probably 4 to 6 cameras. I don't think we want to, we want to get exposure, we want to get our feet wet a little bit, but we can simply, within 3 months, I think, we can act very quickly, because all of the work of setting up the ordinance and everything, that's been done. To add additional cameras is a very simpler process than the initial process of allowing us to do this, right? I think, anywhere from 4 to 6 is the number. I also need you to keep in mind, when I say 4, each camera pointed in a direction is 1. So you want
Or you
44
want north-southbound just at that end of town, or east and west, you got 2 cameras.
Yeah, so that's 2
Okay.
right there. So that may, come into play of bumping you up to 6. This board, you may want to go to 8. It's,
So the
completely up
question,
to you.
so let's say
but-
we wanted to start with slowing down Main Street, because we hear all the time, Main Street's dangerous, it's tough to come visit the restaurants and businesses because it's dangerous, right? To slow down Main Street, if I understand this correctly, you'd have to have how many cameras, because you're gonna start down here.
You're pointing this way, correct? I just want to make sure
I'm
you're.
pointing towards
Towards
Dairy
North.
Queen, yes.
Then you're going that
Or
way.
that
then.
way. Trevor, I got my, okay,
There
that
you
way.
go, that
So,
way,
yeah,
okay.
So you're gonna start down there somewhere
Yep.
with the signs, potentially when you're entering town. And the signs will say you're entering a zone. Is there a, from the signs to the camera, is there rules on that, or can they be anywhere within the zone? In other words, you could have a sign just past the Welcome to Winchester sign that.
No, so you're gonna enter the
slow it
zone,
down.
and literally where the camera is, there's gonna be, and as you were up in Washington, you'll know where the camera
There's
is.
4, you know where they are.
You know, you're gonna
So, to-
clearly identify,
So if we
there's
wanted
the
to
camera.
start down by the green to slow traffic down all the way past,
Put several of them.
I mean, how many just to solve Main Street's problems? Because Main Street, the businesses tell us it's dangerous, and we all know that it is, right? Crossing the street here, when you park and you're trying to, at night in particular, to cross the street, so how many cameras just to fix Main Street?
Remember that you have to get the DOT sign off on this,
Mm-hmm.
so to be perfectly honest, I think the most you're gonna be able to see on Main Street is probably 4, but 2 in each direction, if that makes, so.
So
You're gonna get one
in
coming
that
into town
area
and one
and-
leaving. You're all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, that way.
Like put one at the Y on the corner.
And then to me, Paul, and I'm sure everybody agrees, is to protect the children, right? We have three hot zones. They go by Pearson School. I drop my grandkids off in the morning and seeing cars go around the buses doing 45 miles an hour down that road. The soccer field's over here, where the stop sign is. Every other car stops, the rest of them just blow through it.
We
at
should
40
target
miles
the
an hour.
hotspots, and if that number
And
means
the
it's gonna
playground,
be
you know,
4 or 8, then so be it. But let's target the hotspots where we have people that are in peril.
So I do have a question for you.
Just get 20, just order 20.
Well,
We'll find a spot for them.
And I don't mean to step, because I'm trying to take notes and everyone's talking quickly. So Main Street, Raleigh, Pearson Playground, there were some other,
Rowley, and then
North Main.
Candy by the soccer field's a stop sign,
Oh, Willow.
Willow. It's where all the kids are there before school, during school, after school.
and just so I have all the
Weekends.
information, when you say, you know, the playground, you're obviously gonna want them in both directions, correct? You're not just gonna
I
want.
think
them in
anywhere
one
we're
direction.
putting them, they need to be
Anywhere
in
you
both
want them.
directions.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
absolutely.
assume anything, I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page. Okay.
How are they
Because if a
powered?
kid's crossing the road,
So-
doesn't matter which direction the car's
I think
from, I want them.
I think you could also like go ask the police downstairs, like where would you, if you were to put speed cameras out, where would you put them?
So being solar powered, I would have some concerns. Up at the lake, we have the speed sign that's solar powered. Lots of times it doesn't get the sun that it needs. So I
bet
think,
a lot of us would run an extension cords.
So the vendor has reason for these to work.
right.
They do.
And then,
They have a vested interest to make sure.
talking about the
batteries,
lake,
better
I
solar
imagine
chargers.
Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Connected.
Yeah, they all have that 5G
You drive around the
hotspot.
lake, there are several sections of the lake with no cell service. So we have lots of areas of town with terrible service.
Yeah, one would think that they've got it figured out. They're
Think
gonna,
You do, go to Norfolk, pal.
Any other questions?
We could be like south of the border with signs, 30 miles for
Yes.
the sign, 29 miles.
we have to come up with
speed
really
trap.
creative signs then.
Wall drug,
Pedro's place.
wall drug has south.
So I think we're all in agreement that we'd probably like to do something.
And by
Let's
agreement,
look at
because
that
we're
horse,
being
let's go.
watched, and this is, you know, this is a sensitive issue. By agreement, we're looking to just start a process to get a better understanding. It's
So-
not, this board has not agreed to go down the avenue of putting a speed camera on, you know, North Main.
So can you
Willow,
take us
Raleigh.
through the process for getting the paperwork with DOT? What about our process? Is it a public meeting that happens on this? What's the process?
You gotta have an ordinance. you gotta-
So there are, so it's the legal framework, so state authorization of 2023 allows municipalities to adopt red light cameras. Violators must exceed the speed limit by 10 miles an hour or greater to trigger the citation. Develop a plan, a town must prepare a detailed municipal plan identifying proposed cameras, locations, example, near schools, crosswalks, busy pedestrian areas, backed by traffic data, police records, and crash statistics. This is, any of the companies that are on this piece of paper is going to help us create this plan. Equity rule prohibits placing more than 2 cameras in a qualified census tract and restrict placement near boundaries of high poverty towns to avoid unfair targeting. That's written into statute, so, you know, where we go, if, you know, it's proven that this could be a impoverished area, DOT is gonna say, try again. Local approval process, the plan requires approval from the town legislative body, which is you folks. A public hearing must be conducted to gather community input about the proposed location and ordinance. We have to submit to the DOT for a formal review. CTDOT has 60 days to approve or reject the plan, full or in part. If rejected, they provide feedback to revise and submit. Installation and launch. After the CTDOT approval, the town can proceed with vendor procurement, installation of cameras, and placing mandatory warning signs of all approaches of each camera site. For 30 days after activation, only thing that can be issued are warnings. I think you would probably remember that from our first meeting. $50 for the first offense, $75 for subsequent offenses, plus an optional $15 processing fee. Why wouldn't we? Because there is, obviously labor involved in that. Cameras must be operated by trained and certified operators and undergo annual calibrations with documentation on file. And then post-operations reporting renewal within 18 months of starting, the town must submit a report to the CTDOT and the state legislators. Annual reports follow after that. And plan approvals last 3 years from first activation to continue beyond 3 years. So we could put it up for 3 years. When we put this out, we were only looking for 18 months because we didn't want to commit ourselves to anything longer than 3 years. Plus, I knew what some of the process is, that after 18 months, you can renegotiate your contract, but you could go up to 3 years. And then after 3 years, you got to start the whole process over again.
Is there a better deal for the town at 3 years?
Again, we haven't even gone down that road yet with any of these vendors.
Because the vendors, if the vendors have a 3-year commitment versus 18, the fee adjustment might be something we can front load as opposed to try to negotiate it in 18 months.
Could be.
And so our part in this is, we agree on it. We have a public meeting for input. We have to create an ordinance.
Have to create an ordinance.
Okay.
Yep. Which any of these companies will help craft the ordinance. They will come to the meetings. They will talk with everybody. They'll obviously come to the public hearing with our
We've got
community.
Washington's and Middletowns right now.
Yes. Yeah. There are, and many others that have started the process. There's ordinances being crafted and are further along in the process.
So what's the next step for this board, Paul?
Let me engage 2 of these particular firms. Let me start them down the road of creating the plan and then present the plan to you.
Should they come and present the plan?
They will come and present the plan to
I think
you.
that's a great plan.
What are we giving them, 2 weeks?
We'll see you at the next meeting.
See you at the next meeting?
Put it at the end.
Hey, you know what? I can ask, but to be honest,
Do we need to have them present? I mean, because we're gonna have to have a public hearing.
We're gonna have to have a
They would be presenting. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we get the gist here. And so is it just a matter of you making a recommendation of A or B that you've picked, in terms of what we've all just said? And you make a recommendation to us after having talked to them behind the scenes that this is who we wanna go to, let's start the process.
So I would take what Selectman Perez said and add to it, if you can have the police department identify the locations that they would like, so that when we have this discussion again, we have a location, we have the locations, the quantity, and we can really make a informed decision.
I can do that. I'm sure the chief, I know, is watching downstairs right now because he's working late tonight. I'm sure he's already started the list, so. Tell me he was gonna be watching
Thank you,
tonight,
chief.
So,
All right, we good?
we're good. I need no action. I have firm marching orders, which is what I was hoping for tonight, so, we'll see you back. I don't know, I can't promise you 2 weeks, but we'll give you some information.
Right out of that.
All right, we're going back to item A. Winston Health Center tax abatement, the Northwest Connecticut Housing and Innovation Center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I was stating earlier, Chris is here from the Winston Health Center. I'm going to bring up Chris. She's going to introduce her team. Exciting project that I'm sure you've all heard about. It's been highly publicized as well. She'll introduce her team, talk about where the project is right now, share with you some of the great things they're looking to accomplish, and then they're asked for a potential tax abatement on this project that they're working on. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much. My name is Chris Griffin. I'm the executive director at the Winston Health Center. I have been with the health center for 19 years now. I've seen it through many changes. I don't know how familiar you all are with the project that we're working on. So I'll start from the beginning and try to summarize it the best I can. But anyway, so you're all aware, the Winston Memorial Hospital used to be on our campus. The hospital went bankrupt in 1996. And at that time, a group of community volunteers got together, bought the property out of bankruptcy court, and formed the now Winston Health Center. We are a nonprofit. It's always been a nonprofit for as long as it's been in existence, which was 1902 at the Litchfield County Hospital. It occupied, we have the Veterans Administration there, and they're currently there, and they will continue to stay on our campus through our redevelopment and into our new development. We had Charlotte Hungerford Hospital operating an emergency room there until January of 2021, where they moved to the new location at the end of Route 8, which is really what prompted us to have to think of what we could do with our campus to keep it relevant, right, for this community. We've been serving this community since the early 1900s, Winston and all of the surrounding communities. And what we came up with is the project that we are speaking about with you today. What it is it's 40 units of affordable housing. It's mixes of studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. There will be an emphasis on veterans for that affordable housing. And the other part of our campus will be a Makerspace Innovation Center, workforce development and training. We've partnered with CT State Northwestern, Tungsys, CT State Gateway, Gilbert, Explorations, just to name a few, on that innovation and training, as well as local manufacturers. So what we're really looking for tonight, thus far we have received over $3 million, $1 million from Congressman Larson, and $2.3 million from the Community Investment Fund, which is the state of Connecticut from DECD. We currently have in a construction grant with CIF that will be decided on this month if our project is chosen. And what we've really been asked for from the state, because it will also be the Department of Housing for the housing piece of things, as well as CHFA, we've really been asked to kind of coin something Paul said earlier, in not relation to our project, but they really want to see our local town have some skin in the game, right, as far as buying for our project. Because what we're asking for from the state is a $35 million investment to our campus to make this project come to fruition. So in order for them, to want to move forward and do that for us, they really want to be able to see that the town is supporting our project as well. So at this time, what I'll do is I'll introduce my team who's sitting behind me. We have Kevin Grims. Kevin works for Grow America. And we have David Burdo. He is our housing consultant. And I have Steve Longpre, who is a consultant right now on the makerspace side of things. He has built 2 makerspaces in the past, and he will be the director of the makerspace once the building is complete. So, and this is Paul Sal. Now, Paul is our architect. Just so you guys also know, we do have our municipal approvals. We have our inland and wetland approval, as well as planning and zoning approvals already for the project. So again, what we're here today is to talk to you and let you know about the project, but also to ask you for a tax abatement, which I'll let Kevin bring up after Paul shows you a little bit more of our project. We're not going to go into detail floor by floor, but just to illustrate some of the design that we have going on up there.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Paul Salao, architect, Shadow Salao Associates, and as Chris said.
Paul, can I stop you for one sec? I apologize. Can you hit the red button so the mic's on?
Which red button?
Chris has got it.
There
There you go.
That one.
Has that been off the whole time?
Yeah.
It'll pick you up. It just dawned on me.
You want to say that again?
No, don't. So it's off your whole prior to this too. It's been red the whole time.
So my name is Paul Salao, architect, Shadow Salao Associates. As Chris said, I've been the architect for the project since very, very early on when we began to talk about program and how to revitalize the Winston Health Center. As Chris said, we've gone through planning and zoning and wetlands, and early on, it was determined by doing some of the analysis in town that this health center has been listed as a redevelopment site and a priority for the town. So what we've been working with here is a program that will continue a similar mission, not in healthcare, but an ambition by serving the town and the community. So this is the ground level floor plan. And if you're familiar with this site, it's clearly on a hill with multiple entrances, which actually does us a very good favor here because we've got so many different programs.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
The large square piece in the upper part of that print, is that the original old building?
That
It
is
is.
the original
Okay.
old building.
Just want to get perspective. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep, you're correct.
that is the 1902 structure, a long rectangular shape down the bottom. That is the building from 57, and this entire center section right in through here was approximately 87.
So if you're familiar with the campus at all, the older building has been doctor's offices, pretty much, since 1997. And the other building was the ER, and actually, even at our fullest capacity, 2 of the floors of the health center have remained vacant and look exactly like they did when the hospital closed.
Yeah.
So even at our fullest, there's still 2 unutilized floors.
Where's the old ED entrance on that map?
It's right there in the
Right-
dark
right
blue.
there.
The emergency room entrance is right in through here,
Okay.
right where my cursor is going.
All right,
Down at the lower level that I'm gonna be showing to you. The upper level, when you enter the building, you're actually entering in on this other side at ground level, which is this side. This is how you enter in and get into the main doctor's office level is here as well.
And you said the old building was the early 1900s, 1902?
1902,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the long one at the bottom of the drawing is,
1957.
In the 50s, okay.
1957, yeah.
and then it was connected sometime?
It was connected in roughly 1987
Okay.
or 72 to 87, in that range. There's a lot of things that happened.
Some of us were actually born at the Winston Hospital. I was.
You too, that's awesome.
Yeah.
There used to be a
In the
little birthing
1902
house in the.
building?
Not the 1902 building.
Yeah, my wife was.
It was
too.
there, it was there for 57.
That's
They
awesome.
brought him in on a wagon with the horse.
Just to also mention, I just want to backtrack for a minute. The town did write our project into the affordable housing plan for
Correct.
Winchester, as well as the COG wrote us in their SEDS report for economic development as well. So this is something that's been, we've got a lot of support for locally so far, as well as in Hartford, we have an enormous amount of support.
Can you kind of walk us through in the 3 different structures, if you
Yes.
will, the intended use for each one of those?
Certainly. So that's why I started at this first floor level. This dark green space right in through here will be the office that remain for the Winston Health Center. So this will be their office in that location. Right now, the Veterans Administration is over in through here. Their facilities are, their social services facilities are right there. They're moving over into this portion of the building. So they'll also be in the 1902 building. The Winston Health Center, they have their facility on the upper floor of the 1957 building. That's gonna come down to this level. And that's gonna be right adjacent to the primary control point, which is directly at grade right in through here. So this blue area down in through here is all apartments, which are gonna be happening on the ground level all the way up, with the exception of the absolute lowest level, which is what we're saying, the maker space, which has got the more of equipment oriented.
So right now, that's the
functions going
basement.
back down here. That's
It's the basement level of
Right.
the building.
Which is, we've got windows on the side. And then directly above this area, right in through here, this is actually an elevated terrace. Because we're in the hill, we have very little space for outside areas, so we're creating a terrace on this area for anyone who is in this facility to use that space. I'm gonna go back to the direction. So directly right in through here, right in this corner, right into there is where the helicopters would land, and this is the emergency room. So right in through here is the business entrepreneurial space. This is some of the meeting space where a lot of different program options could take place, talking with different people here that are looking to start new businesses, things of that nature. And then
We've gone up a floor now, we're on the 2nd floor?
you're on the ground,
Actually,
you
he went
just
the other
went
way.
down.
We just went
I
down?
went
Yeah,
down.
he went the other way.
Right, I went down. I went down to the ground level, okay? So this is actually the basement of the 1902 building. And this is also part of our business entrepreneurial space, where we're gonna have lot of program activities going on through here. We're gonna have some 3D modeling in there. There's some laser technology that's gonna be in. There's some classroom going on in through there. We're looking at a culinary component in here, and a great deal of just business entrepreneurial space for people who just want to start a business. And then on that level, going down to this is the lowest level of apartments. This is the grade level, and this is also apartments in here as well. And this is completely accessible to grade from there.
So a way to make that more understandable, so the basement of the 1902 building runs right into the first floor of the 1957 building. So when
Right.
you're looking at it, it's all one floor, even though it's the basement of one building. It's just strange to,
It
to
is,
look
and
at,
this, and this green level has an entire level below that.
right.
And I do not have all 6 levels here because I think it's just way too confusing, and this kind of tells you the program right there. And this is what the vision is for the end of the project. Here's your 1902 building. This is the connection port right in through here.
So that would have been the
An
old
open-
ER entrance.
Right, this is the ER entrance, an open glass area. This is the terrace area that we have up and through here. This is aluminum panels that we have on the exterior of the building. There's vertical elements with actually the green landscaped wall areas on the stair, the elevators. Those are the vertical elements. That's a different tone from what's going on here in the horizontal components related in the housing area. And that's the vision of how the project is going to be refurbished. It's going to be a complete, everything inside the building that is non-structural will be removed. So we were not going to be keeping old systems and services and things of that nature in there. We've had extensive discussions with building and fire throughout this whole place. In fact, our construction documents by the end of the month are going to be 99% complete. So we're incredibly close to final permitting, or final pricing and then permitting. So we are about as shovel ready as we can get here right now.
I-
Just out of curiosity, all your mechanicals in this, are they going on the roof? Are they going inside? You have a
So
separate
there's a lot of
building?
mechanicals that are on this roof here, this walkway roof.
Yep.
There's mechanicals up on this roof, and there's some up on that roof. I think there's a couple pieces, maybe I think there's only one piece down in through here, but it is all on the roof, with the exception of our generator, which is on grade behind the structure, which is probably going to be in and around this zone right in here on grade.
I should also mention, we did receive $500,000 from brownfield funds, which will do the abatement remediation for the property. So we did also receive that. I didn't mention
Right.
that before, but
Can you tell me a little bit about, so Winstead Health Center and NCHIC, right? They're the
Correct.
entities that own,
so the Winstead Health Center owns the property right now.
and Winstead Health Center is a nonprofit?
The Winstead Health Center is a nonprofit,
Okay.
correct? And the Winstead Health Center, we will change names as this starts to happen, and we will become the new name, which is the Northwest Housing and Innovation Center. We will no longer be called the Winstead Health Center, right? We're gonna assume a new name. But one thing I should mention is the housing and the entrepreneurial space are two separate entities in one building, right? So we're here really today to talk to you about the housing side. I just wanted you to understand how the whole project worked together, because the people who reside there will be able to take advantage of what's happening in the other spaces of the building. They will be afforded the opportunities of the trainings, of anything that we have going on in the other parts of the building. The people who live there will be able to take part in those things. So
Will
we
the
really-
training only be available for residents of the?
No, it's,
No.
no.
It'll be open to anybody in the
It's open
town?
to the community. There's a membership basis for members to come in and use equipment. Like I said, we've partnered with CT State Northwestern and Mike Rook already in their entrepreneurial center. John Fiorello has been part of our team since the beginning. We worked, Steve has already had successful capstone project with CT State, is it Gateway?
Gateway and Tunsis.
In Tungus, right. So we've actively already started the process and working and putting on programs and things like that. So it'll be the community, it'll be Winstead and the surrounding communities, the same communities that we've served since we've been around at that camp.
1902.
Yeah, so it'll be Norfolk, it'll be Canaan, it'll be Barkhamsted, Colebrook, New Hartford, and we're hoping to reach further, right? I mean, the state looks at this as we're kind of a pilot project, right? Nobody's done this before. This is the first time something like this is being done. If we're successful at doing it, it's something we hope will be replicated in other areas. It's a really huge thing. It's huge for the housing crisis that we're having, but it's huge for economic development and community development, right? It's bringing in 40 more units of people. Now granted, we only have a few number of 2 bedrooms, but it's still bringing everybody in. They'll be using the different amenities in the town, so it's really adding to the economic development. We're hoping to upskill people, so that will help in the job development and job creation, and we work with the local manufacturers. We've been to Helmet, we've been to others. We know that there's a need here for this. We know, and we're addressing the needs, right? We're meeting with the manufacturers, seeing what programs and what they're looking at for new hires coming in, needs that they have to be met. So we really feel as though this is a huge project that answers to many of the needs in the community, yeah.
So I'm sorry, I have two more questions. First, so the rental income from these 40 units goes obviously to NCHIC, right?
Right.
Okay. So you guys are collecting that to offset expenses for the programs or just operating whatever?
So the housing money
As a
that's.
nonprofit, it's obviously, it's just.
So remember, so the housing portion money that's collected will only go to the housing portion. It has to be separate. The money that's collected from the housing portion will not go to the makerspace portion. That is going to be separate. It can't do that. So it'll pay for the operations of the housing, the upkeep, for everything that the people who rent there need, the staff that operates that part of the facility needs, and those types of things, building maintenance and all of those things. The operating budget for the makerspace is separate.
And you said that there was a focus on veterans for the housing.
Right.
Can you explain that in a little bit more detail for us?
Sure. Well, so right now, as I mentioned, we have the community-based outpatient clinic, which is the VA clinic on site already. They will continue on our site as this happens. We work with the VFW. I have people on my board, incorporators who are veterans. So everybody knows, right? When you have apartments or whatever that are up for rent, you list that. So for us, we're gonna list it for all the places. And if you can go to our website too and check it out, but it will show anybody, that we're taking preferential treatment of veterans. So you would apply, if you saw that this was out there, you would apply knowing that you're a veteran and you would get that preferential treatment. But again, it is affordable housing for everybody. I wanna make that clear. It's not only veterans, but it is an emphasis on veterans.
Okay, so veterans have a different rental rate than?
They do not.
Okay.
No.
So the emphasis on veterans is if you have two applications for a unit at the same time, you would
Right.
choose the veteran.
Right, if it's exactly the same, right. Our hope is that we would have a good mix, right? We'll have a good mix of that represents the community as a whole, but we definitely want to make sure that we have veterans on our campus.
But
Mhm.
following up on that,
Yep.
in the housing system that we currently have, their applications are reviewed and there are certain points that are assigned for different things. So like if you're a veteran, you would get so many points. One of my, what I'd like to know is, since this project started, because I've been watching it come along.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you think it's good.
Having watched what happens in Torrington, what happens in Winston a lot,
Yep,
is we end up with the expenses of the healthcare, the expenses of all the other things that go along when you add, obviously, more people to town, right? The educational costs, we added money to ambulance 2 years ago.
Emergency
We added more
services,
money
yeah.
to police. I mean, you name the service, the town has to do it.
Mhm.
So, because you're gonna be asking us for a tax abatement.
mhm.
So, when people come, and this is gonna sound awful, okay, this will sound awful. But when somebody comes to the health center that we've just abated for taxes, that I don't, I live in the town, and I pay for the ambulance, I pay for fire, I pay for police,
We do,
right? So you do too.
I do, yep.
But what happens is when people come in that that are not Winston,
Mhm.
long-term Winston residents, like a veteran that's not a Winston resident, or a affordable person that comes to rent an apartment that's not here, how is that balance the town of Winchester's needs? Because I watch this, I watch it in the housing area, I watch how it all consolidates into Torrington and Winston with the amounts of apartments that we have and the amount of affordables that we have. And no offense to the little tiny towns around us, but when we had social services, people were coming here, because we had it,
Because we- yeah.
and others do not come here, because we have affordable where they have 10 units in the small towns around us, or 5 units in small towns around us, so they're trying to build more in the small towns around us. But Torrington and Winston seem to take a larger share of all that. So is there, in your application, are there gonna be extra points consideration if, like, for a veteran that has been in Winston for, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Or a person that's been in Winston 5 years, 10 years,
And I
20
think probably
years?
David or Kevin would better answer the housing
Because,
specific.
because, I think when Winstead is being asked to do an abatement
Mhm.
of our taxes,
Mhm.
right, or whatever taxes will be generated from this, depending on what the rental income is, I suppose.
Right.
And, because people that are taking care of it are getting paid money, executive directors are getting paid money. A lot of people that will be in the chain of making this thing work will also be getting paid. So why would a Winston taxpayer want to abate something if it didn't serve Winston residents?
I don't know a really great way to answer, other than just to point out that, we've been operating this town forever as a nonprofit, so we've never paid taxes
Correct.
to Winston. So this will be the first time ever the town would be receiving anything from our location.
Right, but we had talked about the one that's going up at Bachelor School, and in the development of that, we talked about that they would pay regular property taxes, like any other person that owned a 2-family or 3-family or anything like that.
I don't know the specifics of that, because I'm not
No, I know,
part of
but
that,
I'm just
but
telling you.
I do know that they said that they would pay for fair market value for
Right.
taxes, so
Right,
it's not.
fair market value of
yeah.
taxes. So is that the case here?
Well, no, because we're acting for a tax abatement, right? So,
But
which
we didn't get with the Bachelor.
not yet. I don't know what there's, I don't know what they're gonna ask of you, it's a totally different project.
Right, so I
Maybe
guess-
maybe they're in a position to do that, I don't know. The Bachelor School project cost a lot less in state investment than our project costs.
So, if I can add to what Candy's saying here, is there a way to add points for
Longtime residents?
Winston veterans? Not, again, we care about all veterans, but we have veterans in need in Winston.
Right.
And again, I think what she's saying, if we're offering an abatement, can we get extra points or put a little priority on Winston veterans, Winston homeless? Again, I think you're saying what's in it for us.
And while he's coming up, just to add to what you're
We're
saying
kind of starting
also,
a negotiation here, right? You're looking for a
you
little.
must have projected the taxes, your tax
Yeah, so we have all
responsibility
that.
here.
Yeah, so we have all this information,
So
right?
since it's never paid taxes, let's understand what you're projecting it's going to pay, and then ask us for the next step here.
That was gonna be my question, but I got one more thing before we get into the tax stuff.
Yep,
Okay, so, I came to the,
I
one
do
of the
know, yeah.
first
I
meetings
appreciate
with
that, yeah.
Jay, and I'm very interested in the project. When the homeless shelter came to the building, that was a nightmare. So, is there, or any plans for that ever to happen again in this building?
no.
Okay.
There's never been discussed again, right? That,
Okay, because that, I would have an issue with that.
yeah, no, that's never been discussed again. It was a one and done situation. They didn't have anywhere to go, and Jay came to me, and so, you're right, it was a nightmare.
It was, yeah.
But,
And I'm going to throw my 2 cents in too, especially since I'm the liaison for water and sewer. This is actually going to help them, because now there's more users. That's more water going in and more stuff coming out. So that's actually going to help water and sewer if this building goes up. And there is no tax abatement on water and sewer, by the way.
So
Everybody pays.
So my tax question was, obviously you don't pay nothing now, okay? And what do you presume you're gonna have to pay if it's, the maker's part is not,
no, that'll be a nonprofit.
not taxed,
so-
it'll be
right.
just the
It'll be
apartments?
the 40 units. of-
And then how long are you looking for this?
I'll let Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
There's a reason I have to have, consultants on.
That's why we waited for you, Kevin.
Members of the board, good evening. Kevin Grims. So I'm with a company called Grow America. We're a national nonprofit. We work exclusively on behalf of municipalities and also not-for-profits. And actually, the role that we're normally accustomed to playing is being the intermediary between a municipality and development, and structuring and right-sizing a public incentive package, including tax abatements. In this case, we're working on behalf of a not-for-profit who also happens to be a developer. But all good questions. I guess we start from the basics. This property has always been tax exempt as a hospital and a not-for-profit. This is a project I got involved with based upon a request from Department of Housing Commissioner, who saw how complex this development was. It's a very, very difficult building, functionally obsolete, physically obsolete. Unfortunately, it's not historically significant, so you don't raise equity off of the sale of historic credits that you would in many historic buildings. So this is very challenging, and as Ms. Griffin mentioned, the investment from the state is somewhere between $35 and $40 million. There's a lot of applications before various respective state agencies, including Connecticut Housing Finance Agency, Department of Housing, Department of Economic and Community Development. It's the latter agency to which we have a application before DECD for Community Investment Fund. Fortunately, the project has already received $2 million of community investment funding that's funding some of the pre-development work. There's a request for an additional $10 million. And so you basically have a whole lot of state agencies, and I'm going to get to all your questions, but I just wanted to lay the context. You have a whole lot of state agencies that are reviewing this development, and they all have different requests for financial participation. CSFA, they're going to award the housing tax credits, from which private investment in exchange for those tax credits are raised. Department of Housing, they have direct subsidy to provide gap funding between the production costs and what it can raise in terms of private capital. And then Community Investment Fund, they're investing and funding the funding gaps for both the affordable housing, the residential development, as well as the commercial makerspace. It's interesting, the review from various state agencies, Department of Economic and Community Development, they say, well, we see your debt, the amount of money that you're going to raise based upon the income stream, because there will be rents, and the rents are averaging a little bit more than $1,000 per unit, maybe close to $1,100. So the residents that will be able to rent those units will have income somewhere between $40,000 and $55,000, more or less. It's a tiered affordability, so there's a few different structures. But there is an income stream that needs to be necessary for operating expenses as well as debt service. The debt services will support a loan of approximately $3 million. That's less than 10% of the development cost. So DECD says, couldn't you support more debt? I said, well, we love to support more debt, but we have income restrictions and rent restrictions. So there's only so much that we could support. And then the other issue is how much your operating expenses. The operating expenses for typically is $7,000 per unit annually, exclusive of real estate taxes. If we paid full real estate taxes, we wouldn't be able to support $3 million of debt. We'd be able to support maybe $2 million of debt. And DECD says, hey, you got to support more than debt. So what do? Do we increase rents? Well, then it's no longer as affordable to the residents. We can't decrease the other operating expenses because you want to have a quality facility once it's opened. So for each and every one of the state agencies, the way they look at this is that there's a heck of a lot of resources that we're putting into this or considering. What we want to see is that there's an equal level of financial commitment from the town. Now, you have limited funding to contribute to affordable housing. So there's no capital resources for which this development is requesting. So the limitation in terms of financial participation has to do with reducing the operating expenses so that the project could support as much debt as possible. Now, I work in the sphere of economic and housing, affordable housing development all over Connecticut, all over the country. And what I hear all the time is that, hey, this is a developer who's a not-for-profit and it's affordable housing. We want a full 100% tax abatement. And I've always said, no, that's not right, because there is an income stream. An income stream should support some level of taxes because, Selectman Perez, you mentioned the fact that there's services. Yeah, there's services. But the development is asking for a partial tax abatement, not a full tax abatement. So what have we proposed? We have tried to increase the dollar amount of debt to lower the dollar amount of state assistance. And I think based upon the restricted rents, the taxes would be a little bit more than $1,000 per unit annually. That diminishes the amount of debt that the project could support. We're already below 10%. So to go further below that would raise issues with the state because they said, all right, what financial contribution is the town making? So that is respectfully the request before this town is to consider a partial tax abatement. What we have proposed is $500 per unit, 40 units, times the 500, 20,000. And certainly you want to see that increment grow. So we've proposed a 2% escalator. How about the term? This development would be subject to Section 42 of the IRS code that governs the housing tax credit program. And there's a lot of equity that will be raised off of the housing tax credits. In exchange, there's rent restrictions for a period of 30 years. And typically, what the investors who purchase the tax credits want is some level of visibility with respect to the taxes, because they have to protect their investment. So they're looking for visibility or predictability with respect to the taxes, because they know that the rents can only increase by 1 or 2%. So they're asking for the taxes, whatever it's established at initially, to increase by a similar amount, 1 to 2%. So what we've proposed is $20,000 annually with a 2% escalator for 30 years. Why 30 years? That's the term of the affordability restrictions of the residential units that will be affordable for that period of time. So the investors and the lenders, what they're looking for is to have coterminous, have terms that are aligned between the debt, 30-year financing, as well as the rent restrictions and the pilot. I think I covered the questions, but I'd be happy to answer any more.
Well, that covered what you're asking for. So the questions as far as can points be granted or can preferential decisions be made towards Winchester veterans and,
Oh, yes,
and Winchester
Yes.
affordable needs.
And all of these, because you're using federal housing tax credits, and the Connecticut Housing Finance Agency is administering on behalf of the federal government, you have to adhere to fair housing standards. So in all of these cases, you can't provide preferential, there can't be preferential treatment to the residents of the town in which these affordable housing developments are built and placed into service.
So not even a percentage of the units can be.
No, to violate fair housing code.
So what if we abated the units that had Winston residents go into them and not abate the others?
We wouldn't know the percentage of the units that would be, because it would, these are typically done on a lottery basis so that you have applicants, and then those applications are reviewed based upon income limitations and rent limitations.
But if the board, and I think what Candy's asking on that particular one is, and I understood where you were trying to align the 30-year with. I think every year, if you go down the road that Selectwoman Perez was going down, is that there's a census that gets created, right? And if 40 of the units have 40 Winstead residents in it,
Well, they will
Well,
be
they will
Winstead
be
residents once
well,
they've lived.
once they
right,
live there.
right. Well, let's look at schools. Let's just go right to schools. They haven't raised the ECS money since 2013, hasn't kept up with inflation. So in your two-bedroom, let's say you put in 1 or 2 kids, and they go into our school system. The state hasn't followed with the money, and so now those of us that are here in other neighborhoods are now contributing to that financial cost. I guess because you're here, you know, if you live here, you understand our finances. You understand that we just had a close to a 7% increase in taxes, 1.9 mil increase, and last year was like a 9.8 mil increase, right? We've recovered from where we were, but we used fund balance this year to be able to do some of the capital projects because we still have roads not done, we still have public works needs, we have police department needs. I mean, we have, Pearson School has no capital, and they need a roof right now. Like, it costs us probably $1 million with, and the other part being taken care of by the state. So when I look at the issues of where the money's gonna come from, you know, and you know, I'll be out there where you are when next budget season hits. They won't be. They're gonna have to figure out how to do all this because there's a nice crash course coming in this March with all the monies that are out there. So yeah, we would get $20,000 more from this development, right? And so that you could say that the town's getting $20,000 more from this development, but 2 kids in that building take that away, you know? So I guess that's where the dilemma is. And the dilemma is because it's federal, because everybody can come from everywhere, what happens in the taxpayer in Winchester? So your maker spaces and stuff, I want to get to that one too. The community college had a space over there for the business entrepreneurial center. Would that be a duplication of?
It's just too small and inefficient.
Yeah, all right, so it becomes a bigger space, so it becomes like an extension of the college or an extension of Gilbert. We also have a building across the street that has, you know, shared offices
Right.
and working spaces, so then you do that part. But that's all covered underneath the, you know, underneath the health center, or whatever the new name will be now, profit piece of it.
Right.
Right, so, you know, you're projecting a certain amount of utilization and a certain amount of enhancement to the community, you know, from that space, and, I mean, time will tell that.
Right.
I mean, it's a projection, it's not like a definite, but it's a projection. So when we look at all this, I think that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around, is how do we, you know, how, you know, do we need more housing? I mean, I talked to, there's older widows that I talk to, you know, because I also work with the housing board over, you know, the housing authority in town, plus the carriage maker housing place there. And so there's always this discussion because it can't keep up, because the federal guidelines and the state guidelines restrict the rent. And they restrict the rent, so then it restricts everything else down the line, just like you said, you know, you can't keep up. But we're not keeping up, but we're taking in, you know, where the funnel comes here. You know, the funnel comes here. So how do we do this? I mean, how does the town of Winchester provide services and you afford what you have to do and we afford what we have to do? And I think that's what the dilemma is. It's always the dilemma, right? It's always about the money.
Right.
And it's usually not about anything else. It's usually about the dollar. It's gotta come from somewhere. Where's it coming from? Right? And even though you pour the money into it, you know, say put some money in and stuff like that, it's still not, you know, like if we had a business come in, right? If we had a second Howmet come in, you know, and they plop themselves down in town, and we could tax their machines, we could tax their building, et cetera, then all that money that got poured in produces, you know, something for, you know, everyone. So I think that's what the dilemma is, you know, that's really the hard dilemma here.
It's always the dilemma of any public institution that is exempt from taxes. What is the extent to which they generate services that the town has to absorb? I guess another way of looking at it is the level of state investment that is being considered to invest in the town. So
But
at
is
least
it, is it investing in our town, to invest in our town, or is it investing in the town so that the regional people can have a place?
well, I've, there's a lot of projects that I look at throughout Connecticut and throughout the country, and very few projects that I have been involved with. I've had 5 different state representatives come and visit the site based upon what this development is projected to do, because it's really attractive to the state, not only based upon the fact that there's a shortage of affordable housing, but you have a mixed-use element of it with the makerspace and the job training component that is enormously attractive, and you don't see anything else like this throughout the state of Connecticut. That's why the state is looking, and it's a very challenging site. It's highly underutilized for a reason, because private capital in and of itself is not going to follow this development because of the financial challenges. So if not the use for housing and job training, makerspace, it would be very difficult to attract the investment to redevelop this property. And it could be a property that, and the site, or the property itself, you're wondering how long you can continue to operate it without investment because of the difficulties with the HVAC system and everything else, with the roof and everything else. So it's a very limited time that it could be habitable.
Right, but you're looking at 2 other ones right across the street, 3 other ones right over there. Another one down that end, same thing. All underwater,
Well,
investors.
and we're looking at schools with the same issues that you're facing.
And but investors won't come with their own money because they're all upside down. Everything, like your building's upside down, those are upside down. Meaning the investor, if they poured all the money in there that they needed to fix up the thing, could never recover the investment back over time.
Selectman Marino?
How many, of the 40, how many are the 2 bedrooms?
I think
Oh,
it's,
yeah. I'm gonna let him answer so he gets it exact, yeah.
I mean, I think from, you know,
I think there's 8
from a
as well.
school load perspective, it's the 2 bedrooms that would, so there's 8 of those, right?
Right,
yeah.
Of the 40.
And of the 40, how many of those would be veterans?
as many as we could get.
Okay.
And that's not guaranteed, you know, 2 bedrooms, people could squeeze in or what have you, but just to give,
Right, but
if you were
that's-
building 42 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, then it would be potentially a much bigger load on the school.
Right.
And so out of the 40 units, also, because I followed this years ago when it started too, and we were told, oh, this is gonna be veteran housing, this is gonna be for veterans and whatnot. So out of the 40 units, none are designated for veterans?
Well, it was never a veteran, it would limit our ability to raise funding if we said it was only for veterans, right? So there's an emphasis on veterans, right? We have the veterans healthcare that's gonna remain on site. It would be a very attractive place. We have, Ron Welch, the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs for the state of Connecticut, is placing somebody there to do veterans benefits once this starts. So it's a very attractive place, right, to have a veteran live. But again, we can advertise it the same way you would advertise any affordable housing project. We have our website, it's just a matter of who applies. Ideally, we would have a good
But
mix,
so to answer the question, none are designated for veterans
or all, depending on how you
specifically?
look at it.
Well,
You know, I mean, it's, right, you can't do that.
but out of
All
40,
they can do is
12
give
are not
preference.
set aside for
Right,
veterans.
correct, yeah.
Just to kind of put a little thought starter out for the rest of us sitting up here. So we have a piece of property here that has never paid taxes. It may be abandoned in 10 years if they can't do something with it, because the cost to keep it going is eventually going to drown it.
Right.
It's going to be, for us, it's a balance of how much is it really going to cost us to have the housing part of it, right? And you're asking us to commit the town to a $600,000 investment, essentially, right? Is that $20,000, or that amount cut in half over 30 years, is we're investing $600,000 into this project over 30 years. So for us sitting up here, it's never pay taxes. If we don't do something with it, it likely will never pay taxes. It'll be one of the list of properties we have to try to figure out what to do with, added to the list of the ones you already talked about, Candy. But I think we need to really understand what the school impact's gonna be and all the other services, and can we afford to do it? Or can we afford not to do it? That's the other thing.
So my question is, if we don't commit to the 20,000 or a 30-year, say we cut that in half or a third, what does that affect? How does that affect your funding? Is it a definite no, that you will not get funding if there's no tax abatement? Or is it gonna help you get funding, but it doesn't mean you're not gonna get it?
These are very competitive funds through various state agencies. So it just, I think, decreases the competitiveness of the applications for funding for the project. And it puts 35 million or more at risk of not being invested.
It's pretty sad how the state works, because they wanna give all this money to a nonprofit, but then they're gonna hurt the town in the same point.
You said earlier that the average income of these people would be 40 to 50,000. How are you going to? Is that the number that it takes in your mind to approve somebody to rent?
No, it's based upon federal regulations, which affordability is tied to the area median income. The area median income is for the labor market area. So in this region, Litchfield County, the area median income is a lot higher than, say, the median income in Winston. So it qualifies as affordable within the region, but those rents are still pretty respectable rents, and folks still need to have a decent job to earn 40 to 60,000 to afford it.
I mean, I think there's having 40 residents that have to prove that amount of income to afford these units is not a bad thing for us to have these people in town. I think that's a plus. And
If we're understanding that right, so they have to make a minimum of $40,000 to $50,000 a year to qualify for this thing?
Adjusted for household size, depending on that unit size.
If you, in town, Carriage Maker places adjusted like that, whereas Chestnut Grove and Lower Commons, et cetera, are not. There's some units not filled because of the income levels.
So, I mean, if you look at it, $20,000 is not a lot of money in our budget, right? I mean, and we're not getting anything now, so we're getting an extra $20,000. And then it's gonna go up 2% for 30 years, which I figured out to be $400 for the first year, and then it goes up from there.
But to Candy's point, if out of 8 of those apartments, there's 4 kids to
I
hit the
didn't
school.
get to finish that, but that's what I'm saying. And like Paul said earlier, Selectman Marino, that we have to weigh out. I don't have a problem with doing something like this if it's not gonna cost the town money. So if we can weigh out that the $20,000 is gonna be able to afford the services that you need that cost the town, then I would be okay with that. But that's.
well, I mean, we know, what is it, 19,000 per kid? Is that the number as I recall it last year? 19 or 20, something like that per kid?
Neighborhood.
Yeah. So, I mean, 8 units have 8 kids or 16 kids or whatever the number is. We get killed in that number.
Based upon the unit mix, it's usually one child for every 10 to 15 units. So we're talking about 3 or 4 net new students. I raise the question, is the enrollment increasing? The school enrollment increasing?
Yeah.
Well, we have an unusual 7 through 12 system, where the numbers of kids matter. But anyway, so there's data about the cost of services a town has per house, right? There's some data in the state wanna stay in the state. Services per house, like, when I pay my taxes, do I cover all the services I get from the town? Or does the town able to use that money to pay for other things? And some houses, you know, what is that number? What, you know, like, long time ago, like 15 years ago, Salem, Connecticut needed a house to be assessed at $626,000 to pay for the services and the cost of the school. And if it was assessed any less, then the town was upside down again. So what's the per unit cost of town services? That would be interesting to know.
It would be. But then we gotta look at it
Very
this way
difficult
too.
to achieve a net zero effect for everything. I mean,
Right.
Look for the standard single-family home who might have 2 or 3 children.
You know, we're drilling
They're
down
not
on,
paying enough taxes to support those.
well, I'd say we're drilling down
services.
on student counts and things like that, but there's so many houses in this town that pay taxes that don't have kids either. So, I mean, taxes are the law of large numbers. It gets spread along a lot of people. Again, we have to look at this project and go, we like the project. Do we like the project, right? There's a lot of pluses to it. Developing that building into something, or that site into something before it becomes our next empty building that we're going, what do we do with? The revenue that it will generate. I guess it's really a matter of how do we feel about giving up half the potential tax revenue for 30 years?
Net present value of that is 300. 300 is a very small sacrifice for attracting 35 million in investment from the state and another 10 million of private dollars.
There's 10 million of private investors in this?
Well, depending on between the equity raised and the debt is 10 million, yes. So 300,000 net loss to revenue as opposed to 45 million investment. That's a pretty darn good leverage ratio for the town.
Kevin, just on that, and I love math, and I know it's hard to call it out, right? And so you obviously got a $30 million investment into the residential portion. It's never gonna assess out at $30 million. What did you put the assessment roughly, or the value of the residential portion of it? I brought it down to 20 million, which then took 70% of that, which put me at 14 million, which then gave me 14,000, which gave me a tax value of 408 on what the residential space could be worth, but I wanted to just check your math. What do you think the residential side of this is gonna?
Mr. Berto ran those numbers, but
I mean, if we're directionally, we're 100 grand off, which on millions isn't a ton, so you're probably 20 million. You probably came in at 15 million. I could run the math, but.
and
Oh, you got?
yeah, we can run those numbers, but the short of it is CHFA and Department of Housing, if there's not a considerable partial tax abatement provided by the town, those funds are not going to be awarded.
So it's the residential section that becomes taxable in a nonprofit situation, right? And that tax is based on the value of the building? So I just want to be clear, I understand how this works. Yes? The assessment of the building, that portion of the building is what is taxed?
Well, that's what would be just similar to your house. So your house is worth
Okay,
X amount of
so-
dollars, then you have this 70%.
So does the market fluctuate on that portion of the building throughout the 30 years? Will it appreciate, or, does it get reevaluated as part of our reval all the time?
Of course.
Well, it would if it wasn't going the route of, this particular project, and it was just gonna be an apartment complex. Every 5 years, that building would be reassessed.
I'm just asking because this is a unique situation.
It would just be,
It would be reassessed, but it would be abated.
so the value could go up or down.
Well, if the value went up, we'd still be abating only 50%, right? In other words, let's say, round numbers, what'd you say, it was $1,000 a unit?
500, they're gonna rent for 1,000, but they want.
No, I think the total tax was worth $40,000.
They wanted an abatement of 500.
Correct.
$1,100 per unit.
So let's say each
Yeah.
unit was $1,000 in tax, right? But that building appreciates over the next 5 years. I'm just, so suddenly that 1,000 is now making these numbers up, 1,200. Now we're giving back still 50%, but we're giving back 50% of the 1,200, not 50% of the 1,000. Is that
Right.
correct? As the market fluctuates, we would,
No, it's a set 20,000.
Yeah,
For
what we're
30 years.
proposing is.
Oh, I see.
Set 20,000.
so it's not 50% of the taxed value, you want a hard number in
He
this
had a
abatement.
2%
The
escalator.
predictability of those taxes with respect to the lenders and the
Why did you
investors
send this to us?
is extremely important. There can't be volatility in those taxes because there is a very limited amount by which that income stream can
Right,
increase.
there's volatility in the value of the building though, right? Either up or down.
No, because it's still related to that limited income stream. Yeah, and that's why we propose that there be a escalator of 2%. 2% consistent with the expected potential increase in the income stream
Yeah.
annually.
Yeah, we're just trying, this is a very unique
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
situation you have here. So we're just
yeah.
trying to be clear that we understand exactly how it all works and what you're asking. I mean, we know what you're asking for, but how it all works in general. I mean, when I sat here, when you first sat down, I'm like, how's a nonprofit paying taxes anyway? So, we had to get to that point.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that would be
But
the.
the other thing is, the other thing I go back to is that there are people that are working as executive directors, et cetera, not you specifically, but in the nonprofit world, there are people that do get paid, to do jobs and to do
Mhm.
things like that, and they have to generate income to pay those things. So these apartments have to generate the income to pay that, right? So when we, so the abatement is also, well, it's not part of that, it's something else.
It sounds to me the abatement is what's required for them to get the state
Yes.
funding that
It
they've
really
applied
turns into
for.
a- Yeah, really simple.
So if we're gonna attract
Yeah.
$35, $40 million investment in this piece of property, we have to be willing to give up 20 grand
A year,
A year.
for 30 years.
for 30 years. Or we have to agree that we will accept 20,000. There's a better way to look at it.
Basically, better way to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, because it's math and you know me in math. So, we obviously differ, and I'm gonna use their numbers. So, they projected out, correct me if I'm wrong, roughly, if this didn't take an abatement, it would spun off about $300,000 a year, $300,000 a year in tax revenue to the town. So you're not giving up whatever number you said, because it was very low. If it was 300,000, you're giving up $280,000.
Oh, yeah, I don't, $300,000, that's not a number that we came up with.
Oh, I thought you had stated 300. I heard 300.
That was for 30 years.
It was the totality of them, yeah, it was
all
not,
right,
it wasn't a
so
year.
the way I look at things, you got a $30 million investment into the residential, right? That's never gonna value out to what this building, the residential side is what it's gonna be. So I literally then said, okay, I'm gonna take a subtraction of $10 million. I'm gonna say the residential side of that building will be worth 20 million bucks, right? So then $20 million is the value. Take 70%, you're at 14 million. You times it at the current mill rate of 29.17, and that roughly spuns off $408,380.
Divided by 40 units.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how we've been talking about it, is the unit count, right?
Okay, or if you wanted to do, yeah, I never bring this down, but that's at a very.
If that was the case, project would be able to, not even borrow, they would be underwater without debt.
Well, true.
And we're just trying to demonstrate that the project could support $3 million in debt, which is less than 10% of the cost.
Now, on the flip side, and I wouldn't be doing my economic job of this, so you have a $35 million investment. You have anywhere from 40 to 80 to 120 new people in your town that need to shop, get gas. What kind of investment will that create in terms of new store opening up, new restaurants opening up? It's the magic 8 ball. Nobody knows that, but
Well,
obviously.
disposable income, but I think what we're really not embracing is the benefit of having the makerspace and providing job training for those that are gonna avail themselves the services of the makerspace. That is what is the distinguishing factor of this project that separates it from everything else in terms of having a very respected team that is offering job training services through that makerspace.
So is there gonna be a cost for the makerspace? Like for job training per resident?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So.
Can you just come up,
Yeah.
because that mic's not gonna pick you up back there, and our residents listening at home should hear it.
Hi, I'm Steve Longcray. As Chris mentioned, I'll be the Makerspace Director once we're up and running. I've worked on 2 projects in the past, one in the Berkshires called the Berkshire Innovation Center up in Pittsfield, another one up in Randolph, Vermont, called Vermont Technical College. It became the Vermont State University. They had a small manufacturing enclave called the Collaborator. Basically, it was a privatized Army project. They dumped about $12 million into equipment, training, and we were able to start doing workforce engagement throughout the state of Vermont. Both of those projects kind of came away with some learning opportunities. One was that the need for workforce development in rural communities, like Greater Litchfield, can be dramatically improved when you have these kinds of innovation centers. Maker spaces, those kinds of projects, usually you hear about them in terms of school-based projects. This is a little bit more ambitious. This is actually going to be, in addition to 3D printers and laser cutters and things like that, a small machine shop, a woodworking shop to support some of the local industries that are already involved in woodworking. Teaching new technologies like automation, the ability to look at very specific industry partnerships, industry sector partners in things like construction, the companies that will be working with the center. And then the engagement part with the local schools. So we've already engaged with Gilbert School. We're engaged with Explorations. We're talking with people regionally beyond just the K-12 schools, Oliver Wolcott as an example, Ed Advance as an example. We're looking at how Winsted could be centralized like a crossroad, a hub center within Litchfield for projects with University of Connecticut, as far down as Yale New Haven. We're engaging with groups like University of Massachusetts, even MIT, to create kind of really a center area where we'll be able to excel in some things that are very specific to workforce development in and around Winston. So when we're looking at things like HowMet, aviation aerospace, Ed Advance doesn't have the ability, because they're stretched thin currently, to be able to engage in aerospace manufacturing training. But HowMet needs jobs, and they need people in those positions. We can act as a facilitator for that, because we're engaging with CT State Tunxus and their Next Gen Manufacturing Center, which is a NSF-funded, nationally recognized center. We're going to draw from their capabilities, their experience, and their funding stream to be able to bring some of that funding here to support our operations, to train students in things that are related to advanced manufacturing, like AI. And that's kind of the component that I'm bringing into this. This is not just a makerspace. This is going to be an advanced manufacturing training center where we can draw on CT State's incumbent workforce training funds, administered through CCAT, Connecticut Center for Advanced Technologies. They're involved in this as an advisor, but also as a funding mechanism. So that what we can do on that nonprofit side is enhance CT State Northwestern's capability to deliver training, to deliver capabilities to manufacturers as members of this makerspace, as sponsors of this makerspace. And then we can extend that further into the community as a value to the schools.
I
Because
also think it's important to bring up, you know, you guys bring up veterans a lot. We do all the veterans events. We go to Vets Rock at Mohegan. We have a direct connect in to the local veterans in the area. And Winsted, ironically, has a 10% veteran population, which is higher than any other town in the state of Connecticut. Which statistically people wouldn't think, right? You would think it would be on the shore with electric boat and things, but we have a large population here. But Steve also has SkillBridge, which is a military program of active military coming into civilian life, a program to upskill them and teach them skills that they can come out and get a job once they're back in civilian life. So you ask about, you know, what percentage of of the, you know, the housing units may have veterans, but we have, again, a direct path to train and upskill and work with these veterans, which is important, right, for that piece, I think.
Is the job training open to anybody?
Yeah, so within a makerspace model, it's generally a nonprofit that, you know, makes enough money to operate, and you engage the public by having a monthly fee. So it's a gym club for the mind for training. There's usually a sponsored component with companies. So if a company like Sterling wants to teach basic skills in and around pressed metal centering, we can do some component with that. We work with the college to develop that curriculum, and then we host that. But in our situation, because we're a makerspace / entrepreneurship center, and we've got a veteran component, community component that has access to those facilities, we're immediately teaching that collegiate level training, that private corporate level training to anybody that wants to participate. That's the uniqueness of this model. That was one of the things that we took away from the Berkshires and rural Vermont, and we see being duplicated in other areas where you're trying to gain a foothold in community to teach manufacturing skills. Well, just give those skills, make them available. If you want to develop curriculum that has certificate qualifications, you work with the local college to create that accreditation. And so that's what we're working with Ed Advance on. We're working with RDA, we're working with CT State to kind of figure out that component out. But anybody will have access to it. If you join the makerspace, you have access to the 3D printers, you have access to the CAD stations, you have access to the entrepreneurship center, the co-working, networking space. You can use the copiers, or you can use the conferencing room. You'll have certain amounts of limitations, but you'll have all that access. If you want to take a class on advanced ceramics, well, you know, we'll do the pottery making, but we might extend that into, well, where could ceramics actually work in this region where you've got you know, high wear tool use at BD for making injection molded parts. Those are the things that we're looking at trying to do. We want to extend the capabilities of what the colleges are ill prepared to be able to do, because they're also under budget crunches. I mean, we see this across the state. So that component is what I'm focused on. Duplicating what we were able to do up in Berkshires, duplicating what we were able to do in upstate Vermont, and that we're seeing being developed at colleges like MIT and UConn and other places, so that we can do that in a smaller fashion, kind of narrow. We're not trying to do everything. We're going to have a few things that we're very, very good at, with the goal that veterans that come out of the services that have, as an example, I'm having a conversation with one of the faculty at CT State at Northwestern. We're developing a curriculum path because CT State Northwestern does some stuff with NASA currently in the drone arena. Well, there's now a very focused effort worldwide, obviously U.S. military, to start learning how to 3D print drones. Well, what happens to that workforce when they come out of the service? How do you retool that capability into things that are actually productive for industry? We want to start developing that pathway here. Same thing with AI. How do we take nascent companies that have AI capabilities in Winston, there are a few, and teach people how to access those in broader ways, not just in cheating on tests or in creating curriculum for students? How do we actually help industry start to experiment and learn from that? And so teaching the veteran component, teaching part-time active duty, you know, guards and reservists, they could live at the center too. There's no reason why they couldn't apply for those apartments if their income limitations apply. Now they'd have access and job training capabilities to launch their own ventures perhaps, or to be able to work at existing companies across the state. And we don't see this as like transitional housing, but there's certainly the probability that if somebody comes into the center, learns skills that are highly valuable and high demand, and has advantages that veterans may have, or advantages that just, you know, in general, people can acquire through hard work, that they could start businesses within the town.
So how about a resident of town, you know, someone graduates high school, not sure what they want to do, and they want to come to you for job training? I presume it's open to them, first of all, and secondly,
Absolutely.
what does it cost them to participate?
So again, within a makerspace model, you have access to the center for $50 a month. And we're looking at that pricing model. It could be $40 a month. That gives you access to the opportunity to learn various tools. You're going to have to go to courses. You're going to have to get, you know, certified in, not cutting off your fingers like we had in job class. Once you've got those minimum skills, you have the ability now to either work through that curriculum with a college in a lab environment, more hands-on, not online learning like we normally see, but maybe that class will be an MIT-sponsored class. The hands-on component will be in the center. We're having some conversations with MIT about that right now. How do we develop a pricing scheme around that? Well, CT State's gonna wanna be involved in that, or the state's gonna have some authority in that for accreditation purposes. We have to figure those things out, but distance learning where you're doing hands-on component in a makerspace or an innovation center, that's a proven concept. How do we have companies sponsor that? Well, maybe you become an intern at a company, like a Howmet, and they're now qualified after 6 months to do incumbent workforce training, and that gets funded by the state. So that's kind of the pathway.
Do you see most of your residents are gonna be participating?
We're gonna encourage participation. We can't force it upon them. But one of those criteria when we start looking at, how do you qualify the point system? Are you an in-town resident? Well, I don't know how we're gonna accommodate the question of, do you wanna participate in the on-site programming as a qualifier, if we even can? But it's certainly something that we're putting out there in our marketing to say, look, this is something that's never existed before. It addresses a lot of the needs that we discovered at both academic and consortium-based workforce training centers, technology centers, that there's a lack of affordable housing around them, a lack of accommodation to towns that are really characterized, where people aren't stuck in the city. How do we attract people to that with the notion that, well, you belong to a makerspace if you live here, or if you don't, you're part of the community in that makerspace, and you can gain access to technology that you normally wouldn't see at a high school because you can't get in there, you're not quarried, or at a library because they can't afford it, or you can't get at a college even local because their makerspace or their entrepreneurship center is very tiny and they're likewise ill-funded. We're gonna have about $500,000 plus of fairly advanced equipment that we're gonna be able to host. That equipment's gonna be community accessible for the cost of being able to operate that makerspace component, maintain and operate those technologies.
So, you said you have two other locations. You did these Pittsfield, Mass, and where was it, Rutland, Vermont?
At Randolph.
Oh, Randolph, Vermont, okay. And both those programs are still up and running and successful?
Oh, yeah. And what they were able to actually do, I came in as the operations manager at the Berkshire Innovation Center, and in about 18 months, we had landed 20 tools. We built a VR center. We built a capability to do learning in collaboration with CT, Connecticut Center for Advanced Technologies. We did some defense-focused advanced manufacturing training. And now after I left to go to Vermont, they qualified for a federal EDA grant. And then they started really, engaging with lots of companies where the workforce training component in Massachusetts really kind of aligned with what we put in place. We did the same thing up in Vermont, where we were focused mostly on advanced manufacturing in the 3D printing metal space for Army-related projects for defense applications. But we saw about 180 companies come through within the first 24 months. We landed 30 tools. We trained the faculty. We trained local industry on what was possible. And then they started doing work in advanced composites and advanced metal 3D printing for aviation satellite development. But they also touched on like turbine development, wind turbines, and solar photovoltaic facilities. And we did educational outreach. We did work with local schools where there was 3 students and 1 faculty trying to learn how to teach advanced manufacturing, engineering, and we put the curriculum together for them. So we saw that path, and the takeaways when I heard about this project were very, very similar, except we had veterans focused and housing on site, as well as entrepreneurship. And those 2 centers, the Berkshires had entrepreneurship involved. Central Vermont doesn't. Burlington has entrepreneurship. So this is ideal because we have an active entrepreneurship group. CT State Northwestern is well known for that. And we're going to be able to provide not only the place for that, but also some office space and the innovation expansion space in the basement of the 1957 building.
Well, that's why I was curious.
Let's get back to the abatement. That's why we're here for this,
Yeah,
the rest of the program.
Well,
Actually,
one thing I do want to say about that is basically you're a trade school. No, I mean, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to it all, and I understand it all, you know, because I come from an educational background. But it just sounds to me like the trade school, the Lincoln Techs, the kind of thing that comes there, and it's like the housing is like a dorm, right? You know, because if you're gonna live there, then you go to your training. It's almost like you're developing a school.
We're hopeful that people that will live there at all ages will avail themselves of this. I mean, I look upon it after having talked to lots and lots of veterans, lots of people outside the services. If you could live at a place, have an affordable apartment, and you could have access to technology you're not gonna see in a high school, you're gonna not see at a college, because it's not bleeding edge, but things that are unique, that would give you an edge in either starting a business or potentially getting a better job. And you could practice with that stuff. You could make your first things, your first widgets, maybe start a small business. Would you enjoy that? Would that be useful? Do you see value in that? And unanimously, people say that'd be wonderful. But it's not a structured school. We're not looking to become structured. We'll bring in people from outside organizations that will do that
But
structure.
you also have the federal guidelines where you can't guarantee that these people are gonna be in the apartments. The fair housing and all that kind of stuff, and where people come from. Because I know people are just looking for places. You know, they're not necessarily looking for.
And if they're not, then that's okay. There's a broader community.
So getting back to the abatement, and I'm glad you had a chance to tell us about this, really, because I mean, I kind of like this project. I like the idea of.
That's the difference maker of this project.
Of
It's an
hosting,
economic development project.
of our community being able to host this, actually. I think it's a benefit for the town, and we're always looking for unique things to bring to our community. And as I look at the investment of $20,000 a year, as you pointed out, you know, in the case of our budget, 20,000 is not really destroying our budget one way or the other. These people will also have cars, there'll be some revenue from that, and, you know, the revenue piece, I think the abatement makes sense at this point. My thinking, anyway. I think to invest in this property, which, again, if we don't know what it becomes. I don't know how many more years you can keep it floating the way it is, so.
Probably not even a year.
And we're attracting a nearly $40 million investment here. So I, for one, I like this project.
Is it 30 years or nothing? The previous board gave a tax abatement to a business. I think it was 5 years. His plans didn't pan out. I would hate to see us give you guys a 30-year abatement, and then a couple of years down the road, you guys sell out or collapse.
Can't.
Like, right. I don't
We
think
can't,
that's.
Yeah.
But so is the abatement specific to you? If, God forbid, something happened, and in 4 years you guys were no longer around, somebody else acquired the property, are we on the hook to them for 27 more years, 25 more years?
No, it's specific to the residential component of this.
Okay.
Because it's being tied to, you know, the federal low income tax credits, which are all.
Right, it all ties in with the 30-year, you know,
Yeah, I don't think that's question's ever been.
But they're being funded by, your component is being funded separately from the housing.
My component's already been funded by the federal government,
Right.
so.
And the state,
And the state.
significant state investment.
Right, so that's funded on its own. The housing is different.
The housing is what counts.
So I guess my question is, what's the bottom line when you gotta have an answer?
About
I'm a
15,
bottom line
about
kinda
about
guy.
10 to
When-
15 minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
10
much
15
10 to
minutes
15
ago.
minutes. What is the opening schedule? If you get the agreement from us and all your other, and,
So I
and,
tell you-
and God bless you dealing with so many different state agencies in one project.
yeah, it's not easy, right? That getting the money from them, well, we got a lot of support, it's.
But assuming you get through all of these hoops, when
So
do
we
you
would
hope to
break
open
ground-
this?
We would break ground in the spring. And 18 months after that would be the goal to open. That's the schedule that we're on.
Are construction jobs required to be local? Any percentage of them like they did at Torrington High School? Torrington High School, they had internships and had to have so many people local that were hired.
They probably all have to be state-approved contractors, right?
Yes.
But could you, to Selectman Perez's point, if the abatement goes through, which isn't tying the rental units, and could you tie that we're offering this with consideration that local vendors would be
I think there's a
given
process that's required
preferred,
by the state.
preferred
that-
selection?
They may not have the choice.
Yeah, I mean, we're following their
You'd have to be on the
guidelines,
list
right?
to
So we
be,
have to put an RFQ up, we hired a construction manager based by their guidelines, right? And then there's a process we have to go through to conduct, to put the RFQ out for any of the people doing.
But when you go in, so when you go out to an RFQ or an RFP for the electrician, for the drywaller, you could say that there is a local preference being given to select
I
that
don't
vendor.
know.
That I know you.
I would, it's
I-
state approved, it's state approved
yeah,
contract.
you gotta be
It's state's money.
bonded, you
With that
gotta be
kind of
on the
money.
list.
Yeah, bonded, the whole bit.
You can't just be.
And we have
Joe
very
Schmo
few,
plumbing.
probably local contractors that can handle a project of that size.
Right.
I can say this, up in the Berkshires, once the project was completed, we then went to local sourcing for the punch list of things that happen afterwards. So when we wanted to land a new piece
Yeah,
of
things that
equipment,
were
we
the
had to
art
hire
control, right.
an electrician. And we had to get that electrician trained or qualified in doing work with German engineered machines. So there is a component that's already built into the makerspace workforce training part, because we are gonna be looking at technologies that aren't common to look at construction-related applications and machining applications. How do we work locally? Because we do want to build a local workforce. We want to showcase them.
In essence, the makers thing is a job opportunity also.
Yep, we have to employ people, we're looking at internships, we're looking at the ability for that to be an on-ramp to college, or trade, direct into trades.
I think that we would be interested in, if we do the abatement, that it's specifically for NCHIC, and then at some point, you sell the property for whatever reason, or close down and sell the property.
Well, like David said, if someone bought the property, they would have to stay within the same restrictions that we do, right? So whether the owner changed hands or not, the same rules would still apply.
But they don't have
But
to
we're doing this
reapply, so
abatement because of all of your funding needs, is really what it
Right.
comes down to. And that person may not have the same funding needs, so I don't think we'd necessarily want
Or
to
the
be.
investor who buys the credits, invests equity in exchange for credits, they have to stay in the ownership for 15 years, as does the general partner, who is part of the ownership structure.
I think this is coming out because the health center, was a taxable thing, and then they sold it right off the bat, and there goes our taxes, and now they wanna be a nonprofit, so I think that's what everybody's
Oh, I'm
doing.
like, yeah, we're glad.
Let's
So
let's
this
stay
is
away from
different.
Let's stay away from
Let's
that.
stay away from that right now.
This is
So again,
different.
No,
When do you
I think
guys
it just
need
has
an
to do
answer?
that,
Honestly, they're looking for me to call them tomorrow. That's the answer. The answer was last Friday.
Yeah.
before they
It's an
did the
awful
meeting.
lot of information to swallow.
I'm not ready to vote.
I'm not really ready either. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad project, I think it's good. It certainly could help, but I'm not ready to answer it either.
Yeah, we're just trying to put in to be responsive to the state, to demonstrate
Understand.
readiness as much as we can. This
So
is
let's-
a big component of readiness.
So we're talking about, our component of this is, are we willing to give up half the potential taxes for 30 years? That's the basic question we have to answer.
But it's more than that, Paul, because are we willing to give up the Winston Memorial Hospital building? Because if they leave it, it's gonna go downhill quick, and it's gonna be a big eyesore in the
It's already
town.
downhill.
Well, they're gonna put 35 million into it, make it look good.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, are we willing to give up half the revenue so that they'll invest $40 million?
$20,000 has nothing
Right.
to do with anything.
So, I mean,
I don't see it as what revenue we're giving up.
Right.
I look at, is $20,000 enough to cover the town's cost of them going in there? Do we get 20,000, is $20,000 enough?
Of pure public services, no. But I think what really should be taken consideration is evaluated benefit of what an innovation center and a makerspace provides. It's an economic development initiative.
Correct.
To assist local personnel and the employers, because the employers really need this in terms of enhancing the job training for their prospective employment base, because they can't get qualified individuals. You hear it all the time in terms of the employers, especially the manufacturers can't get the skilled labor that they need.
Because they
So,
don't teach it
I've been in
anymore.
manufacturing for
That's why.
35 years, so I know what the health problem is. I work for Dymax Corporation. We have 400, try to keep 400 employees just in Torrington alone. That's why when you tell me we have over $500,000 worth of equipment, I mean, one good CNC center's
Todd, are you ready to vote?
$500,000 to $1 million.
Right, we're talking basis, we're not looking at teaching.
Right, you're gonna need investment afterwards.
Paul, you want something?
Just looking at the particular funding source, obviously, we know you went out to SIF, their application was due Friday, you can let them know,
No, the application went in June. They were willing to give us time to further our support.
Okay.
So we can make a better case by their decision on September 27th.
low-income housing tax credits, when are you guys applying for that?
I mean, it's kind of a little.
Because you're not doing the 50, what were you doing, the 8%? What are you guys, what was it?
4%.
Okay. And that rolls, right? That's
Correct.
anytime, it's not the one that's due in
That's
February.
happening like as we speak.
That
right?
happens,
So the
okay.
we're in regular talks with DOH, CHFA, that's all happening as we're talking to you now. The only hard deadline we had, the first deadline we had was SIF, who gave us the opportunity to provide them more information by their decision-making date at their board meeting on the 27th.
Just out of curiosity, because this one popped into my head, just why only go for the low-income housing at 4% when there are richer programs out there? Just so, taxpayer comes in, right? Heavily financed, hey, why didn't they go for as other
If we qualified to
organizations?
go for a higher percent, we would, but due to the regulations and things for that 9% tax credit, we don't qualify for that.
You don't think so?
I know, so.
I mean, looking at your
The
incomes,
state
right?
publishes a qualified allocation plan every year.
Yep.
Based upon their priorities of what types of affordable housing they want to support. And they have a scoring system related to that allocation plan. We've scored this. It falls short of scoring enough to get a competitive allocation of 9%.
Okay. I mean,
We're
you
not
guys
census
are.
tract, we have all these things, I mean, it's,
I just look at other agencies
Yeah.
prior where they ended up scoring, and where this project does offer that uniqueness of that makerspace area.
I can't tell you the amount of avenues we have gone down to try to find funding opportunities. We have what I think is a really good funding stack at this point. It took us almost 4 years to get where we're at
It's a
now.
13-source capital structure,
Right,
13 different funding sources.
right. And this is,
And if
this
one,
was the last piece, right? This was the piece the other funders said, all right, we've got 13 funding sources willing to put into this project in Winston. Now we need Winston to say they're willing to support that project too. That was the last piece that came into us as the other funders have, we've aligned the other funders. So that's where we're at,
and you're confident you're secured the $30 million
plus.
plus.
As confident as one can be without getting the final.
Without the checks.
Right, I mean,
Well, it's being able to show the readiness of all the components are in place.
I get it.
This being a very important.
right, this is right. So we have all of the supports from all the right people, right? We have all of the commissioners of all of the, we have everything that we need. But what they're asking of us is to ask of you to show that you support the project as well. That's what we're doing. But again, for a $35 to $40 million contribution in various ways from the state, they really want to show that the town is behind it as well.
We are waiting for Selectman Lemire to come back, so I don't want to take this discussion too much further until he's back. Does anybody else do you have any other?
I just want to, this just landed in our little laps at 8 o'clock, or 8:15.
Right.
I didn't have any of this, major information before this. So I know you're gonna move for a vote. So,
And I agree, since we're a major component, we're also the last ones you're asking. You've got 15 other investors, and you want the town, but we're the last ones you asked.
They just asked us they asked us of this now.
Just now,
Right.
before you came here tonight,
Well, we met with Paul
Thursday?
Thursday?
and I reached out to Paul a month ago, but he wasn't at your last two meetings, so we had to wait until to be, whatever it was, we had to wait for him to be present to be added to the agenda. So,
In your time frame, you don't get a decision tonight, what happens to the project?
I can only report what you say and then see, right? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you have agencies that are waiting for this answer?
Yeah, they'll consider it, because it's an intraday agency approval. So the big request is Community Investment Fund that is being reviewed by DECD. Because there's a residential component, there's also a review for underwriting at CHFA and Department of Housing. And so we've sized the debt at $3 million. So when they're gonna be the lender. So it's very important for them to have predictability with respect to the operating expenses. So if the pilot is not authorized, we have to adjust the loan amount. Part of the feedback from DECD is that we'd like for you to be able to borrow more. That depends on, partly depends on the income levels or the rent levels and the operating expenses.
I am all for public and private investing, but just like Selectman Perez says, it kind of just dropped on us tonight. And I think I just need a little more time, so.
So I come from the category of, we've asked a lot of good questions here. We've got a good handle on what the scope of the project is, the funding. They're asking us for this abatement, which actually brings revenue in that we currently don't have. There'll be 40 residents coming to town that we don't have, that to afford these apartments will have some disposable income to bring to town. I like the community aspect of the job training and the makers area. I think it's a really unique project for our community to host, and it's an opportunity for us. So,
And to add, it's a plus for our veterans.
yes.
It makes them a better space, better job opportunities.
So I'll move that we move forward with the abatement for 30 years as described in the project. Paul, you've got the details, I take it?
I would need to get with the town attorney to create the abatement agreement. Obviously,
What do you need from us tonight, though?
authorization to, well, not to speak with the town attorney, but to create an abatement agreement following the schedule of starting at $20,000 a year would be the revenue, lack of a better term, with a 2% escalator for 30 years, totaling out at $35,517. I'd have to get with Kevin and create the agreement. We would, you would need to bring in, your counsel as well. It would be issued probably on date of CO. That right there would allow me to get into an agreement, that you're authorizing me to enter into agreement to create a 30-year abatement schedule based on the initial year of $20,000 with a 2% escalator each year thereafter for 30 years with Northwest Connecticut Housing and Innovation Center.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, further discussion. No further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? 502.
Talk tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 11, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes. Anyone wish to speak? Seeing no public comments, moving on to item 12, executive session, discussions regarding 508 Main Street 48 Bridge Street, sale of real estate, taking with us Town Manager Harrington and David Satarana. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
All right.
And it is 9:43.
If I'm not gonna go into executive session, I'm gonna take off.
Oh, yeah, please, Jeff. Yeah, thank you, yes.
Go ahead, move that.
We're back from executive session at 10:03 PM. We have no action to take. Moving on to item 14, Selectmen's comments and reports. Anyone? Item 15,
Make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second? All in favor?
Thanks, everybody.
My favorite item.